4, 3, 2, 1. Ben Greenfield eats ants. Just want everybody to know.
Hey, if I was going to go to Disney as much as you go to Disney, I'd eat a lot more black ants.
Why are you eating ants?
Well, supposedly, I actually don't know that much about ants. I'm just eating it because it supposedly gives you energy. I needed a pick-me-up this morning. We lifted weights this morning, and I needed a second boost of energy. But apparently these ants live in ginseng roots, and they have something that grows in their heads that acts as like a nootropic. It's like some kind of a chemical nootropic. And it also supposedly is one of these Chinese energy tonics. It's like the whole, the doctrine of signatures. You know the doctrine of signatures?
No,
in nature.
what's that?
Have you heard? It's the idea that things in nature give you clues, right? So like when you slice open a tomato, you've got the 4 chambers of the heart, and tomato is supposedly good for the heart. Or pomegranate is good for your blood, and the little pomegranate seeds look like red blood cells. You slice open a carrot, it looks like an eye, or you crack open an egg, it looks like an eye. Those are good for your vision. Sweet potatoes, which everybody thinks is like a sweet, sugary food, those are actually shaped like a pancreas, and they can actually help to normalize your beta cells, like your insulin-producing beta cells in your pancreas. So you look at, walnuts for your brain, and people talk about avocados, right? Mm-hmm. Supposedly they look a little bit like an ovary, and they're good for female reproductive function. So you can carry that over from the plant kingdom into the animal kingdom and say that if you eat ants, because they're such energetic, endurance-driven creatures, that it supposedly will make you stronger.
Boy, that's a stretch.
Well, wait till this stuff hits me, and then we'll arm wrestle. We'll find out.
Have you been doing it for a while? How long have you been taking this stuff?
That was the third time I've actually used it. You just dissolve it. I mean, I used it for a workout a couple of times.
So this is your concoction, right? You took ground up ants.
I didn't grind up the ants myself. That would have been exhausting to catch.
Did you buy them ground up?
I bought ground up black ant powder.
Okay, Jimmy just pulled up some ginseng ants.
I don't think they're called. That's where I bought them. That's where I bought them. Lost Empire Polyrachus ants, a key tonic of Chinese herbalism.
But you know what? The Chinese people are also into the rhino horn.
It's not just a pre-workout herb. According to the website, it's a pre-workout super herb.
Oh, a super herb.
Is supposedly far more scientifically super
like
than a regular
superfood.
Herb. Right, it's like a superfood. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm a little annoyed with that word superfood.
I like that idea, though, of the doctrine of signatures, right? Like certain things that you see in nature being good for you. There's one called... I forget the name of this plant, but it's called the insulin of the heart, and it's amazing for decreasing sympathetic nervous system activation and causing you to relax. And it has these beneficial cardiovascular properties in people who are just so driven that they tend to have, for example, a heart attack or an MI. And it's not Spilanthes. I forget the name of this, but it looks like a heart, and it has all these red vessels that kind of come off it. It's called the insulin of the heart. There's an app that my kids and I use to identify a lot of these. It's called Flower Checker.
So you read about this ant stuff online, and then you started taking it, and then you mixed it in some sort of a tincture? Here it is.
Just vodka. Yeah, Ubane. That stuff.
Nature's perfect but forgotten remedy for heart disease.
Ubane. I interviewed a physician on my show, Dr. Thomas Cowan, and he wrote a book about how the heart is not a pump. And he talks about the true reason for heart disease being sympathetic nervous system overdrive.
What does he mean by the heart is not a pump?
Mineral depletion and dehydration. And what he means by the heart is not a pump. It's a fascinating book. The shape of the chest is, I believe it's called like a tetrahedron or something. It's something like that. But basically, as fluid moves through the heart, the action of the fluid actually moving through the heart allows it to pass through the heart and not have to be pumped through the body, but rather the shape of the heart is almost like causing the fluid to move in a vortex. And
but
so it moves more readily out of the body. Oh, the heart contracts. Yeah. But it's less of a pumping action and more of like a vortex flow that it creates. The book's called Why Your Heart Is Not a Pump. It's very interesting.
Is it well received amongst scientists?
No, it kind of flies under the radar a little bit. Yeah, but it's an interesting book. Short book. It's like maybe 100 pages long.
Universally regarded as a pump.
Yeah. I don't know if you would necessarily classify it as a pump as much as a contracting muscle. But
boom, 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 but when you die and then they bring you back to life, they push your heart to make it pump. Pump, 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 pump. Seems like pump.
Yeah.
But so, I don't know shit.
Read the book. It's interesting. It's interesting. But this flower checker app, it's really cool. You take a picture of a plant, and then there's a team of live botanists on the other end, and within 24 hours they identify the plant for you, and you can learn its edible properties, its medicinal properties. So my kids and I can walk around and take pictures of different plants, different flowers, different things on our land, and it develops this online herbarium that then allows you to keep track of all the different plants and what you've learned about them and what they're good for. So we use that whenever we're identifying plants. There was one time when we were fishing off the North Fork of the Clearwater. So we went on this fly fishing trip, and we stayed in this cabin.
Clearwater?
The Clearwater up in Idaho. So we were near Grangeville. Most people fly into Grangeville, Idaho. It's a great fly fishing, huge steelhead. And the hike that we went on, we didn't have our phones or anything with us to take pictures of what we were finding, and we found this enormous, almost like a field of wild asparagus, which is and my buddy who was with us, he had bear broth it was like a bear bone broth that he had in this vat back at the cabin. So we harvested all this asparagus, and this was before we went out fishing. And we put all the asparagus into the bone broth and then just left for the day. And then we came back and we had fish, we had bone broth, we had asparagus, and we all ate this bone broth. And it turns out that this stuff was not asparagus. So my kids and I, our heads were spinning all night. The guy that owned the cabin, apparently he didn't sleep. He was just like hunched over the toilet the whole evening. And it turns out this stuff is called, I think it was brassica. It looks like asparagus, but apparently it has very high levels of nicotine. So we were all overdosed on nicotine for the next 2 days on this fishing trip.
You should probably be really careful before you eat wild shit.
That's the only time I haven't used that app to actually go plant foraging.
Who thought it was asparagus?
We all thought it was asparagus. You know, it was me, one of the chefs who was out of the cabin with us, my kids, and twin 9-year-old boys know a lot about plants, so you always trust them if they say it's wild asparagus. But I was convinced it was asparagus. I mean, I kind of tasted it out there while we were out in the field, and it tasted like asparagus, but no, it's not asparagus. It's brassica.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. That sounds horrible.
Yeah, but there's another app called a Plant Snap, and apparently it uses artificial intelligence, like a reverse Google image search to identify a plant. I've used that, and it's useless. Anything you take a picture of, it doesn't seem to be able to identify anything. But this flower checker is just live people on the other end.
Does Google there's Google image search is like some. There's an application that uses cameras, and if you take a photo of something, you can identify it.
Right, exactly. I think that's called like a reverse Google image search or something like that. But the AI doesn't seem to work as well for plant identification. I would imagine it's looking at the leaves, the shape of the leaves, how it comes off the plant, the veins, the opposite versus symmetrical, everything that goes into a plant identification. But
now, when you steelhead
I'd rather
fish,
go with a real person.
Steelhead, you got to go with a real person. You got to go with an actual botanist. Yeah. Steelhead are ocean-bound rainbow trout, right? They come back and forth.
Yeah.
Do you catch and release, or do you eat them?
This was all catch and release. There's
it's a real common thing with those things.
There's a certain kind that you can catch, and I'm not a fly fishing expert. This was like a fun trip with my kids to learn how to fly fish, and we didn't catch any that we could actually keep.
Yeah, I don't understand that kind of fishing. It's weird. That take a long trip, go out into the wilderness, go to the river, catch the fish, let it go.
Yeah, it's the thrill of the chase.
I get it. I mean, it's great for kids.
Yeah,
I've done it with kids bass fishing before.
Yeah,
but it's just
you can't do that when you bow hunt.
No, but it's just
catch and release.
It's a weird thing. You're sticking a hook in a fish's mouth and then letting it go. We got him. Let's let him go.
Yeah, they're hard to reel in. That's like a 10-minute fight to get those fish in. They're big.
Yeah, they're powerful fish too. They deal with those ocean currents. Ocean fish are almost always more strong when you pull them in than freshwater fish.
Oh, they're very strong. They're stronger than ants, I would imagine. Yeah.
Speaking of big,
go back to this
big
animals.
Go back to this ant thing and tell me what has been the reaction. Like when you take it, like how you feel?
Just like a cup of coffee.
You really do feel like
you do feel more energy.
Do you think it's because of the ginseng, or is it possibly a placebo effect?
I think they just live within the ginseng, and that makes the story sexier for the website that sells.
So you think just eating the ants themselves give you energy?
I would imagine that you'd have to catch a lot of ants to get what you'd get out of like all the powdered extract that they sell you.
Right, but I mean eating the powdered extract then, just that somehow or another. What's the mechanism for giving you energy?
There's some chemical that's in the ants. Huh. I don't know the mechanism of action. Again, I really don't claim to be an expert in ant extract.
But yet you have a bottle.
But I'm sure I have a bottle of it. It was in with all my other supplements, and I was packing up this morning and thought it would be an interesting one.
It is interesting
to show to you. Just a giant bottle that says ant on it.
What is the what's the standard way that people take it? Do they?
I think as a powder or as a tincture. Yeah, I would imagine you could probably put it in a smoothie. Yeah, with your bee pollen, your other insect derivatives.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a weird one, huh?
Yeah. Anyways, though, you should have come out and done the Spartan. I know you were at Disney.
Yeah, I told you I couldn't go, so I don't know why you said I should.
Yeah,
well, I told you I couldn't.
Well, Spartan's a little bit more interesting than Disney, in my opinion.
Well, I didn't go to Disney for myself.
Yeah. They have kids races out there too.
But you were doing commentary or something? Is that what you're doing?
I was doing the they have commentary all day long at these Spartan races. So I was doing the commentary and then I raced the next day.
Oh, so you did it one day commentary, one day. So it was a 2-day race thing?
They do the way they do it. They get like tens, probably. I would say some of these races 8,000 to 12,000 athletes.
Wow.
in that approximate range.
So they break it up.
They go out, they break it up. There's long races, there's short races. So the long race was about 13 miles, which on a road half marathon, that'd be like a 105 that an athlete would do on a race like that. And
so it's a 13-mile run
with the obstacles and the hills, and it's out at Big Bear, which is a ski resort, which I just found out from my wife. Apparently, they use fake snow. There's like a pond at the top of the resort that they make all the snow with. Apparently,
it's real snow, but it's artificially created, right? It's like they make with a snow machine.
Yes, artificially created real snow made from water at the top of the mountain in a snow machine. It's not. Yeah, it's not foam.
I wonder if anybody's trying to do that.
To make foam snow?
Yeah, to make some snow
Ask them at the mall in Dubai. They've got something over there. I don't know.
But I bet it's a snow machine, right?
It probably is actual snow derived from water.
Yeah, at the mall in Dubai, they have like a crazy hill, right? You could ski.
Yeah, they have an actual indoor ski. They have penguins, an indoor ski resort, everything. Yeah, so this race, though, for those same 13 miles, it's like 2 hours, and I think the winner did a 2:16, 2:17, something like that.
So you have to jump
over
stuff?
So you're going a lot slower. Yeah, you got to carry sandbags and carry big gravel buckets. It's like doing yard chores and then running to your next yard chore. Barbed wire crawling and hoisting ropes. But it's good for full body fitness. Because I used to do triathlon. When I did triathlon, I was weak, right? Because you swim, you bike, you run, and I had an engine that could go for days. But I did my first Spartan race, and I couldn't climb a rope, and I couldn't carry a sandbag up a hill. So I think it's good for functional fitness.
Here it is right here. Jamie's got a video of it up there.
That's a stadium. That's actually a good way to start.
Oh, that's
inside of the stadium.
Did it at Dodger Stadium a couple weeks ago.
And you don't have to get muddy, and there's no fake snow. And the stadium races.
With a fucking selfie stick.
I don't know how fast they did it.
It can be kind of a joke because some people will go out in uniforms with big cowboy hats on and dressed up as a Spider-Man in their Lycra, and then some people they have these elite waves where it's actual legit athletes doing
this.
This
is kind of interesting though.
But it is you can see you move your body in a lot of different ways on these courses. So it's fun. It's fun to train for because you got to train all your different body parts and you train for power and strength and there's endurance. So it's a good mix of everything. Yeah.
I didn't know they're doing them in stadiums. That's kind of cool.
The stadium races are cool because you just show up at AT&T Stadium where you're going to race and you go up and down and they will turn a stadium into like a 3 to 4 mile event. I mean, that's how many times you go up and down these stairs. And they have an event for the kids where the kids will go up and down the stairs and the kids have miniature sandbags and miniature spears. So it actually is kind of a cool event.
That's pretty badass. That looked like pretty badass.
For the whole family.
Except for his fucking selfie stick. Like, everything must be documented. You cannot live in this life without people knowing exactly what you're doing at all times.
Yeah.
Running with a selfie stick.
I'm taking my kids to one of those train to hunt competitions this weekend.
Oh, yeah?
In Bonners Ferry. So they're going to do their first actual kids. And same thing, it's the kids events where the kids shoot. They've got 15 to 20-yard shots, and then they have like a sandbag lift and a run, and then they've got another shot, and then they've got burpees up and over a cooler and another shot, and then there's a grown-up event and a kids event. Those things are fun too. And
yeah, those are really interesting. The idea behind them is kind of cool too, because it lets people know what, like if you're involved in one of those backcountry backpack hunts, it's very much a physical event. Like
very much.
You're carrying most likely at least 35 to 45 pounds on your back, especially if you're carrying your camp on your back. And then you're hiking, thousands of feet of elevation. You're up and down, climbing over logs and shit. You're carrying your bow. There's a lot of physical exertion involved.
There's a lot of crawling. A lot of crawling.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you did that Hawaii hunt.
Yeah.
Which island did you hunt?
Lanai.
Lanai, yeah. I hunted Kona. I guess it was like 5 weeks ago, and on the sheep hunt, because the sheep stay out in the open plains, you'll crawl sometimes for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
To get close enough for a shot.
Yeah, the final day, when I killed 2 axis buck out there, and the final day we crawled for at least an hour, like super fucking slow. Those things are switched on.
And it's frustrating too with an animal or sheep. Sheep are not stupid. They're smart. Now they're not as fast as an axis, but that's the most frustrating part is you'll put on a crawl, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe you're 200 yards out and you spend an hour getting 60 and then the wind swirls and they pick you up and they're off.
Yeah,
and
that
then you
happened
just
a few
stand up and
times.
brush yourself off and you got to go crawl again.
Yeah, but if it was easy, it wouldn't be hunting.
Yeah.
It would just be killing.
I got one of those jungle scrub cows. I told you.
Yeah, you were telling me about that.
Yeah.
So these, to explain to people what a scrub bull is, because
apparently they're just feral cows.
Yeah,
and they're not all bulls.
Cows,
There's bulls and cows. I shot
yeah.
a cow, and I thought at first that it was going to be kind of a stupid hunt shooting a cow because the pigs are pigs. They eat really well because they feed on macadamia nuts. They're a lot better than the pigs in Texas. And they taste amazing.
Macadamia nuts.
We did it. Yeah, it's very fatty, almost like a nutty meat. So we did a Cinco de Mayo cook-off, me and my kids, and we took the ribs from this pig that I shipped back. So it was like $150 to ship 250 pounds of meat back from Kona. So I had sheep, pig, and cow, and shipped it all back, which is not that expensive. And the pig was, it ate better than any pork I've ever had in my life.
Really?
These ribs. And we blended them up, and my kids made an adobo sauce with the peppers, and they have a little food podcast. So we did all this for their food podcast. But oh my goodness, it's like the fattiest, but like a nutty, flavorful fat because they feed on these macadamia nuts.
Wow.
There's no grain, there's no corn, and they're just wild and running around out there. So the pig was really good, but the cow was tough. Yeah. It was a tough cow. On the first day we were out there, I took the back strap and I soaked that in lemon juice all day, and that kind of broke it down a little bit. And it wasn't that bad. But what I did when I got home was I've got a refrigerator out in my garage, and I hooked up a temperature controller to it. You can get this temperature controller. It's called an A419. And it'll keep the temperature of the refrigerator about 34 to 38 degrees. So rather than plugging the refrigerator into the wall, you plug it into this temp control unit. And then you put a humidifier in and a fan, like on the bottom of the fridge. And then you take all your meat and you lay it out on grates in the refrigerator. And I left it in there for about 3 weeks, this scrub cow. And it develops this hard, gristly coating on the outside of the meat. And then I took it out and just sliced all this hard gristly part off of the outside, and the inside of that meat was like butter.
So you're dry aging it essentially.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's a dry age in a refrigerator, but you control the temperature you want about 34 to 38 degrees. And then the humidity can vary a lot more than that, but I kept the humidity at about 60 to 70 degrees. And then basically you just slice off all that hard, gristly external coating, and you've got this amazing meat. Super soft, super tender. And then I just have this vacuum packer, and it's a cool little unit. You can just cut a bag any size you want, right, for a neck or a shoulder, or like a smaller bag for a back strap or a tenderloin, and bagged it up.
Yeah, I have one of those vacuum sealers. Yeah. Those things are awesome.
Yeah.
So
but the dry aging was key.
Yeah, I have friends that have one of those walk-in coolers, and they could set it to a certain temperature, and they hang the meat and dry age it out there.
But I don't know what walk-in cooler they have, because I looked into the dry aging refrigerators, and those are like $5,000.
Yeah, they're expensive.
But you can get a refrigerator off Craigslist. That A419 thing I bought, that was like $50 off Amazon.
How big is it?
The refrigerator?
Yeah,
just a normal size
regular
refrigerator.
Size refrigerator.
Yeah.
And so, the food is on grates inside that refrigerator.
Yeah,
and the
so
fan
I
is
took
on
all the
bottom?
shelving out of the refrigerator, and I just put some plywood on either side of the refrigerator, and I put these metal grates.
Oh, so you constructed your own sort of...
Right, exactly, and then just laid the meat down on the grates and put the fan on the bottom of the refrigerator, so it's constantly circulating the air inside the refrigerator, and then the temperature controller has this... it'll display. So in my kitchen in my house, it'll display the temperature and the humidity. So I know if something goes wrong, so not all that meat spoils inside the refrigerator, because I'll see when I'm inside my kitchen, it'll read that the temperature is getting too high in the refrigerator. So maybe somebody unplugged the fridge or the controller, needed to be reset, which happened a couple of times. But you want to keep an eye on it.
Yeah,
it's a great way though to take meat and make it far more flavorful, more tender.
Well,
it's
especially
really good.
that kind of meat. I mean,
right,
that's
that meat that's tough anyways. It's tough,
animal.
It's gamey.
Yeah. These water buffaloes, like you see the one behind me, a buddy of mine shot one of those in Australia, and he said that he had Cam Hanes, he had a piece of it in his mouth, and he was chewing one piece for a half an hour. Yeah. That's how tough it is. And this was the backstrap, which was, one of the more tender parts of the body.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's this idea though that's good for your jaw. It's good for your teeth structure. Like there's this guy, I think it's Max Mew. My brother sent me this YouTube video. This guy, but his whole idea is that humans' jaw structure, our bone density, our teeth, our trigeminal nerves, all of that don't work as well as they should because we grow up on soft food. And we don't have to chew food.
That makes sense. A lot of boxers chew like big chunks of bazooka bubble gum.
Right.
It gets kind of hard after a while, and you dig into it, and it develops some muscular endurance in your jaw.
Mastic
I've even seen
gum
muscles.
is another one.
I've seen machines where you take like a leather strap in your mouth and you're hanging a piece of weight from it, and you're doing this like.
People were selling those for a while as a way to decrease rating of perceived exertion during exercise mouthpieces, and that the advertising on them was that the Vikings used to chew on leather before they'd go into battle to reduce pain and to increase their time to exhaustion. And so they actually sell these mouthpieces that you bite down on when you're exercising. But they weren't designed to strengthen the jaw as much as to reduce how hard you felt like you were working during exercise. And some people swear by these exercise mouthpieces.
Well, I know that mouthpieces supposedly can maximize the amount of effort that you can put forth. Like there's a difference in the amount of strength that you can
bite down. It's almost like when you shake somebody's hand, you make a fist with one hand, then you shake their hand. You're stronger, and that's something that Pavel Tsatsouline talks about in his books. About how to generate as much force as possible. You close one fist. Even if you're going to do like a bottoms up kettlebell press, right? You can do it with one hand open and press. Then you close your hand and contract this fist, and it's far easier.
So what is the idea behind that? It somehow energizes your entire body.
It's fascia. Your fascia covers your entire body. So if you tighten up one part of it, it causes you to be able to produce more force. So try it sometime with a kettlebell or water bottle or a coffee cup.
Well, I always I flex my hand outward when I'm doing like bottoms up kettlebells.
Yeah, but you flex your hand.
Yeah, I definitely flex my hand. Yeah. I'd never just like let it sit. There's always some tension in it.
It's full body tension. It's the same reason that you'll see a lot of tennis players, or I think boxers do this too, a Valsalva maneuver when you strike. So you hold your breath, you go when you stand that, and the same thing. It tightens up everything and allows you to produce more force.
Yeah.
The other gum you mentioned, the bazooka. There's a gum called Mastic Gum. And I interviewed this guy, Dean Karnazes, who he did the 50 marathons in 50 days, and he ran the traditional marathon in Greece, which is apparently not 26.2 miles. It's like 100 and some miles that he ran.
What?
And he would chew this mastic gum, which they do use for jaw strengthening, but it makes you produce more saliva too. So when you're running, you can get dry mouth when you're running, and a lot of times you'll be thinking about food, you want to eat. This Mastic Gum apparently keeps your appetite satiated and allows you to produce saliva. And I bought some, and it's
see if you can find that shit.
It's I think I got it on
Mastic Gum.
Amazon.
Health benefits of Mastic Gum.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Little rocks. And the interesting thing is you can take it out after you're done chewing it, and then just like the next day, put it back in your mouth and you can chew that stuff for days. It's like an everlasting gobstopper.
What does it taste like?
It tastes like ass. It's not that good. But if you have this H. pylori issue, it's supposedly very good for that. Yeah, look, that one they added licorice and aniseed and fennel.
So it tastes even shittier?
Yeah, but but it's supposedly, this idea that we grow up on soft food and babies eat soft food. Yeah, you wouldn't want the capsule. The capsule would be good for your. That's where you got to be careful. Is a lot of companies sell it as a capsule, right? As Mastic Gum as a capsule, but you want the actual gum that you chew on. That's the exact one I have. That Krenos.
So there's
Mastic
the extract.
Gum. Yeah, and that's the stuff that you actually chew to make your jaw stronger, and to produce extra saliva.
Huh. And do you use this stuff when you work out, or you just occasionally chew it?
No, I don't like to have gum in my mouth.
You seem
when
like
I'm
you have
working out.
so many different things going on and so many different modalities that you're experimenting with. There's no way you could possibly.
Yeah, but that's my shtick, dude. That's what I do. Is I try stuff and I write about it. It's not like I'm doing Mastic Gum and blanket powder and injections all day long. And
but
I don't
if the
have a
Mastic
life.
Gum works.
Yeah.
I would think you'd keep doing it all the time, but it's just like...
You forget about a lot of stuff, though. You try out so many things that you forget about. They're like, oh, yeah, I tried that out a while ago. It was pretty good. I need to order some more of that. So, yeah, I lose track of all the stuff I try. I don't have it all systematized in some big Excel spreadsheet.
What are you doing with the exosomes? Explain that, because I just got some shot into some tears that I have in my shoulders.
It's exosomes. Exosomes, they're signaling molecules. So your body actually has them. Your cells have exosomes, and they're used as cell-to-cell communicators. So they interact with cell surface receptors, and they'll actually carry a message from one cell to another, such as you need to absorb this into the cell, or you need to carry this to a joint, or whatever you'd want to use an exosome for to carry messages throughout the body. It's part of your, I believe it's referred to as the paracrine system, right? Your body's internal cellular communication system. So the idea is that if you combined the exosomes with other therapies, like platelet-rich plasma injections, which you do to increase the amount of growth factors available to a specific joint. They did exosomes plus PRP with you,
right?
Which I can tell you the full procedure that I did, but I just got that all over my face. My face 5 days ago was red and swollen because it was covered with exosomes and PRP injections. It's a beauty procedure.
You're beautiful as you are.
Thank you. You
don't need to change.
But now I'm a beautiful 13-year-old, not a beautiful 37-year-old. So the exosomes can be combined with other things like PRP, and also with stem cells or with bone marrow. And that's what I did. And the interesting thing is that you can get something like a placental cell, right? And in my case, they actually took placental cells from this lab called Chimera Labs. I had this procedure done in Park City, Utah. This guy named Dr. Harry Adelson. And he had these placental cells from Chimera Labs. They destroy the placental cell so that there's no actual DNA from some other person that you're putting into your body, right? That's considered to be part of the risk of stem cells. Even umbilical or amniotic, you're still getting somebody else's DNA into your body, not your own DNA. So the idea is that you would take exosomes that you've isolated from something like a placental tissue, and then you would mix those with your own stem cells. In this case, what I used was bone marrow aspirate. They went into both of my iliac crests. They took out the bone marrow. They mixed it with the exosomes. And these videos, I published both of the videos on YouTube, and it's like a huge syringe full of blood. You see him drawing it out. I'm going to see it drawing out of my hip.
How much bone marrow are they taking out of your hip?
A lot. I was out. I was heavily sedated during the entire procedure. Well, not heavily sedated. I was under. It wasn't general anesthesia. It's called full body sedation. Apparently,
so you're
it's similar to general anesthesia with few of the risks of the actual anesthesia. I was not conscious. Not that. All I remember is they said count from 100 down to 0, and I got to like 93, and then I woke up. Yeah, exactly. So they took the bone marrow from the iliac crest, right, which is just like bone broth for your whole body. It's got collagens, it's got peptides, it's got stem cells. They mix it with the exosomes, which act as the cell-to-cell communicators from those placental cells, this place called Chimera Labs, which in my opinion is just a great sexy name for some kind of a mysterious lab company where you buy placentas. So basically they mix the exosomes with the bone marrow, and then what they did... Yeah, see, that's what it looks like.
That's in your ass.
That's one of the iliac crests. You asked me how much they took.
Look how much they're pulling out of you. Yeah, holy shit.
A lot of it.
That's bone marrow?
But he did that like 4 times because he did it twice to each hip.
Are you fucking shitting me?
This was 5 days ago. He told me I was supposed to not do anything for 2 weeks, but I did that Spartan race. I armored myself up.
Why didn't you listen to him?
Well, I was signed up for the race, and I had sponsor obligations to actually not.
Dude, sponsors can suck my fat dick.
I did.
Because that looks like a fat dick they're pulling out of you. That's how big it is.
I used like 4 rolls of rock tape. Dude. My entire body was just taped up because I didn't want to ruin anything that he'd done. So, anyways,
what do you mean by rock tape? What is rock tape?
And kinesio tape. You've seen this stuff before. It's like what you see CrossFitters wearing and Olympians
like
wearing.
When you have like tendinitis and shit.
It supports the joints.
Oh Jesus, they're going in for another tube after they suck that out?
They did 4 of those big tubes.
How much, Jamie, how much do you think you have in your body? Do you think you have 4 tubes of marrow floating around someone could pull out of you?
What?
Yeah.
But the tubes also, you know this, when you give blood, crazy, you can give like 19 tubes of blood, but it's not as much blood as it actually looks like because it's inside of that little skinny tube.
Right. No, I get that.
So he and his partner.
Seems like quite a lot.
What they did was he went with that bone marrow.
Dude.
Mixed with the exosomes. They mix it with ozone, which apparently, using an ozonator, which apparently increases the efficacy of the bone marrow.
And you're doing this for no specific injury.
No specific injury. No, this is all just for 2 reasons. Number 1, anti-aging. Number 2, just immersive journalism, just to write about it. I think this stuff's fun to write about and look into and study. So, and apparently these stem cells stay available. So this is an over-exaggeration, but it's almost like you'd be like Wolverine, or like you recover faster when you get hurt for the rest of your life.
So here he goes, pulling out round 2.
Yeah, for people who are listening to the audio and not watching the video.
It's like a horse dick. They're pulling a horse dick out of him.
It's a lot of blood. And then he injected my entire musculoskeletal system. He did my cerebrospinal fluid. He did all up and down the discs in my back. He did,
Whoa, Daddy.
Yeah,
and are you conscious here?
I've got needles. No, dude, I'm totally out. I would not want to be conscious. I was just box breathing, I was meditating.
Because I'm
totally out for this.
Regenikine done,
and you can
like
see there,
this.
I have the Ironman corporate logo on my back. So I did, technically that's trademark infringement. It's the Ironman logo.
I had Regenikine done in my spine like that, and bulging discs while I was awake. It just feels weird. It just like an increase in pressure.
I've done a lot of this stuff before. I mean, I told you this last time. I had my stem cells taken out of the fat in my back down in Florida. Yeah, and then I re-injected them intravenously, and then I tested my telomere length.
Look at this.
Yeah,
they just.
Oh, this goes on for hours, dude. And like I was there for 3 or 4 hours.
So they just screw it in and pump those in, and then find a new hole. Yeah. You're totally out cold while
I'm totally out cold. My wife's in there freaking out. You can see her somewhere in there holding the camera.
Fucking A,
dude. She was doing a Facebook Live and answering questions as we went.
Jesus.
So get this. His partner comes in. She takes those same exosomes after he does ankles, knees, hips, elbows, wrists, back, every part of my. They flipped me over.
While you're out cold.
Yeah, my wife said that was the weirdest part was they flipped me over and I was just limp like a noodle. I think she's moving my hand. See that? So then his partner came in and she's like a sexual performance and beauty specialist. And I don't want this to turn into another podcast about just injecting things into your dick. But she did. She did. She injected the corpus cavernosum, which is the shaft of your unit, and then she did the head of the penis, and then she did.
Dude, what are they doing to your face here, man?
Then she did my face over and over and over again, everywhere, exosomes all over my face, and I've seen some 50 and 60-year-old women who have done this, and it actually does seem to have a pretty significant effect. I don't know how much of an effect it had on me, but I said if they were going to put me under, he called it a full body stem cell makeover. Apparently nobody's ever in the history of the world done this before.
Oh my God, dude.
So if I die, that's the one thing I can brag about.
You look great. This is what I don't understand. You don't need this shit.
No, a lot of like I said,
a lot of this stuff
is it's interesting to write stories about and to talk about and to tell people what it's like.
I get it.
And then they did that on the face.
What are they doing on your face here?
And that's exosomes mixed with PRP.
And what is that
they inject
device
all into the face?
that you're doing it with? What is that thing?
I don't remember because I wasn't awake.
Right, but it looks like it's got little needles all over it.
I think it might be like some kind of like dermal abrasion type of thing.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Fucking your face up, man.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this was a few days ago, and
how many
days? I feel like I healed 5 days ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so I healed up pretty quickly from it.
That's crazy because 5 days ago was when I was doing my exosomes.
Oh, great minds think alike.
Dude, that is crazy.
Yeah. Actually, what day is it today?
No.
It's Tuesday. So this was seven days ago. 7 days ago.
Mine was Wednesday.
Anyways, though,
they're fucking your face up, son.
Yeah. Woo. And I actually had just gotten a concussion because I got in a bike accident when I was down in Austin, Texas a couple of weeks ago. And so the other thing that I did, this is interesting because for a TBI, there's all sorts of things that you can do, right? Like ketones, exogenous ketones work really well for that. And that's a lot of Dominique D'Agostino's research on concussions. DHA is another good one. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy chambers, right? With the high oxygen plus the high pressure. That's really efficacious for concussions. But the other thing is stem cells. And so what I did was I ordered the stem cells that they harvested from my body in Florida. Because I think I told you about that the last time when I was on the show. They store... I have like 30 injections of my own stem cells stored down in Florida that I can use for joints, for anti-aging. And I also, one of the reasons that I did that was if I'm ever in a car accident, if I ever get some traumatic injury, I can heal myself faster with these stem cells. And that happened. I got a concussion. I was riding my bike in Austin on 1st Street in rush hour traffic, and a car clipped me on the side. And I made love to the pavement. My entire face got torn open, and I got a concussion. So I did all these things, ketones, DHA, hyperbaric, PEMF. That's also really, really good for concussions. Pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. It's used for anti-inflammatory. It's used for sleep. It's kind of like grounding and earthing. There's a lot of interesting studies on PEMF. Also for concussion. It enhances your own stem cell production. It shuts down neural inflammation. So I did that, but then also stem cells won't cross your blood-brain barrier. So I ordered up this stuff called mannitol. And if you inject mannitol into your bloodstream, it increases your blood-brain barrier permeability. So this is what you do in a fight or a football player, somebody gets a concussion. You inject with mannitol first, and then you follow that up with a stem cell injection. If the mannitol is already in the bloodstream, the stem cells cross the blood-brain barrier, and they go in to heal neural tissue.
Would the exosomes cross the blood-brain barrier because they're smaller than stem cells?
They're very small. I think they're like 100 to 200 nanometers, which is pretty small.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised if they cross the blood-brain barrier as well.
Yeah, one of the things that they were saying about stem cells versus exosomes is that stem cells tend to get pooled up in the lungs. They don't pass the lungs and they get absorbed there. And they believe that the exosomes being released by these stem cells are the reason why you generate and regenerate tissue. They think that going straight to exosomes is going to be more efficacious than just going with stem cells themselves.
I think that some pharmaceutical company or some supplement company is going to make a lot of money in the next 10 years by figuring out a way to make exosomes or figure out some way to do it in a way that is more available to the general population than harvesting it from placentas and some crazy lab.
So you weren't supposed to do anything for 2 weeks.
Not for 2 weeks. But I asked the doc, I told him I was going to do a Spartan race. He said, proceed at your own risk. And
what would be the risk?
And my plan, apparently if you jar the joints a lot when they're already kind of weak from the surgery, you can risk tearing a ligament, spraining, straining, doing damage to a muscle that's kind of weak and lax from the surgery.
From the surgery. But is it really a surgery? Because they're not cutting you open.
The injections. Procedure. And I sprained my ankle within a few hours after waking up from the surgery. Like I just kind of stumbled and it was extremely lax, almost like a pregnant woman creates this hormone called relaxin, right? And they get more flexible and they're able to give birth more quickly. It's kind of that same idea is the joints and the ligaments become more lax. So my whole body felt a little bit more like Gumby. That was why I taped up everything. I had knee braces on and elbow braces and wrist braces, and I felt fine during the race.
And this whole procedure was how many hours?
It was about 4 hours.
4 hours out cold, shooting you up.
Yeah.
What does it feel like when you wake up?
Oh, there's a pretty funny video I posted. I thought it was funny. I was trying to speak French. I told my wife, I'm like, I have a confession to make. And the doctor's like, uh-oh, here we go. And I'm like, I speak French. And then she asked me if I speak French. And I said, I didn't actually speak French. And then you could see me trying to laugh like I'd made a joke.
But you just out.
Have you ever been sedated?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're kind of loopy when you wake up. Yeah. So I don't remember that much. But And I still, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't notice much of a difference from any of this stuff.
Well, it's supposed to take 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's supposed to take a long time before it really kicks in. And it flares up old injuries. Right, like I strained my upper hamstring when I played tennis, and that's flared up. My left knee is flared up. Like I'm feeling old injuries that
flared up.
Almost,
that's interesting.
They almost like brought back, not flared up like it's red and inflamed and swollen, but I feel it. I feel it. My right ankle, which I strained a lot when I was playing tennis. That one feels, it feels like I mentioned, it's weak, it's painful.
And they told you that this was going to be something.
They said that it could flare up old injuries. That you'd feel worse before you'd feel better.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't hear that at all.
Yeah.
But I did hear that 6 weeks. 6 weeks is the benchmark.
Yeah, it's a little bit of time before you actually feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other interesting one for not only enhancing your own endogenous stem cell production, because it actually would, a lot of this stuff, it's fringe. It's expensive. I mean, that procedure I think is like a $30,000 procedure. Not everybody's going to go out and do that. And this is another fringe one, but there are ways that you can endogenously increase your own stem cell production. I mean, and your own stem cell viability and health without actually doing stem cell injections. Fasting is probably the one that's the most efficacious. A lot of these things that are kind of uncomfortable for you seem to increase your body's ability to be able to heal or produce its own stem cells. So fasting for long periods of time, not necessarily fasting with caloric restriction. I think that's the mistake a lot of people make. They try to fast and they feel like crap. But the idea is the benefits of fasting don't come from not eating a lot of calories. Not eating a lot of calories isn't that great for your thyroid. It's not great for your metabolism. You don't want to live till you're 120 and be cold and thin and hungry the whole time, because that'd be a horrible way to live a long time. So the idea with things like Walter Longo's research or a lot of these intermittent fasting type of diets is you fast and you increase cellular autophagy and stem cell production, your own stem cell production, by going for long periods of time without eating. And the magic seems to kick in at about the 16-hour mark. So I do 12 to 16 hours every day, and then you get even more benefit once you get up to about 24 hours. So I try to do a 24-hour fast from Saturday dinner to Sunday dinner, but I'm still eating the same number of calories. It's just a compressed feeding window, right? So it's not like you're starving yourself. You're getting all the benefits of fasting, but you're still maintaining some amount of anabolism, right? Because you're still eating as many calories, but you're almost giving your body, your gut, and your metabolism a break in between a lot of these meals.
And that's where the benefit comes from.
That's where the benefits are not from not eating so much damn food. The benefits are going for a long time in between your feedings, right? So the idea is, you'd wake up, and in the population for which this seems to be the most deleterious are lean, active females. They do not respond well to these long fasts or a lot of time spent doing intermittent fasting. It's like the cons outweigh the pro for that population. But for most everybody else, these 12 to 16-hour fasts, preferably up to 16 hours, going without eating, and then eating as many calories as you'd normally eat. With the exception,
do you compress the amount of calories?
It's a compressed feeding window, right? So, what the guy whose house I was staying at when I was doing the stem cell procedure, Dan Pomp, he's very into this stuff, and he's a doctor down in Park City, and he goes all day, and then he has a huge dinner at the end of the day, right? Like an enormous, lovely dinner, a couple glasses of wine and steak,
thousands
and sweet
of calories,
potatoes, like 3,000 calories for dinner, and I'm more of like a 2-meal. Light breakfast or light lunch, and then just 2 meals.
I've been doing the 12 to 14 hour thing, and sometimes I ramp it up to 16 hours, and I do feel better when I do that. And I definitely become more accustomed to not eating for long stretches. And sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I almost think, should I just eat? But then I'll stop and go, well, I'm not really hungry. I mean, it's really just a matter of habit, a force of habit that I'm even considering eating right now.
Yeah, but fasting is probably one of the better ways to increase your own endogenous stem cell production, provided you're going for about 16 hours and provided you're still eating as many calories as you normally eat. The only kind of caveat to that would be protein cycling. Right? This is why I'm not a huge fan of the carnivorous diet, where you're eating 4 to 6 pounds of meat a day.
Yeah, you were trying that for a while. You're putting that on your social media, but you had some vegetables mixed in.
I was eating one of those big steaks every single night for dinner, just like a bunch of steak every single night for dinner.
For how long?
And this was like 10 days, not that long.
How'd you feel doing that?
I felt pretty good, but I love steak. I was eating these bone-in ribeyes. I ordered them up from Missouri, I think is where their farms are, but they make these French cut, grass-fed, grass-finished, bone-in ribeye steaks.
I'm getting hungry. Just saying that.
Dude, remind me, I'll tell you how I cook them. Maybe I'll tell you how I cook them after we finish the science of the carnivore diet, because I don't want to because I'll just forget everything if I start talking about cooking.
Okay,
I love to prepare meat. So real quick, I
know quite a few people that are doing this now.
So real quick, and then we'll talk about how to make these steaks taste really good. The idea is that protein cycling, right, having a meatless Monday, or having, as a lot of religions would do, like the Eastern Orthodoxy Church or the Mediterranean diet, they have certain periods of time where there's complete meat restriction, or your protein intake is restricted to fish and eggs, for example. And the idea is that you would strike a sweet spot between not being in a constantly anabolic state, right, and not having this mammalian target of rapamycin constantly activated, which would theoretically accelerate aging, or in a lot of rodent models we see that unrestricted protein feeding actually causes aging to accelerate. So the idea is, on your lower activity days, especially for an athlete, you could still intermittent fast and get all the benefits of that, and you could still eat as many calories as you would need to sustain a normal, healthy metabolism, right? So you're not starving yourself, but on the less active days, you would shift to a lower protein intake, right? So you're talking about like 0.5 grams per pound of body weight rather than what a typical athlete would need, which would be, depending on who you ask, 0.7 to 0.85 grams per pound of body weight, right? So there's some days where you're high protein, some days where you're low protein, some periods of the week, such as a meatless Monday, or some periods of the year, such as every quarter, for a week, where you're eating a plant-based diet or you're restricting meat. You're basically giving your body a break from being in that constant anabolic state. And I think that the carnivore diet causes a lot of people to miss out on some of those elements. And then if you look at the blood work of that doctor who does the carnivore diet, he publishes blood work online. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what else is going on with him from a health standpoint, but he had really high blood glucose and really low testosterone, and some things that suggest that it might not be healthy to eat just meat. And
did he have really low testosterone? That's interesting.
It was like 200 to 300. It's
really
pretty low.
That's really low.
Yeah, diagnosable hypogonadism combined with almost like borderline diabetes.
Is it possible he did it after a workout? He does a lot of rowing.
I'm not sure
real high
would
intensity.
Suppress your testosterone that significantly. It would increase your HSCRP and your inflammatory markers, right? Which is why you never want to go to a doctor for a heart checkup after you've done a workout, because they're going to tell you you're going to have a heart attack based on the levels of HSCRP that you have. But that blood work is just one example, and I don't want to pretend like that one example, is gonna paint with a broad brush the entire carnivore diet phenomenon. But I think that unrestricted protein intake and unrestricted meat intake probably has an accelerated aging effect on the body. And
here's the difference.
Dr. Ron Rosedale is a doc who has some good information on that. He's got a good video online.
What's going on with this carnivore diet is there's no science behind it. There's a lot of people that are giving it a shot. A lot of people are finding good results. But I find that people, when they just change things, there's a period of time where they say they feel great. And that is absolutely 100% a placebo effect.
It's the same thing as like a vegan diet. You feel fantastic. And name me one population, one blue zone that eats meat and nothing else. Right? And there's actually very few centenarians who are purely vegan for their entire life, because you can, if you don't do it the right way, build up fatty acid deficits, amino acid deficits. Creatine is one you don't get. Vitamin B12, DHA.
But at least there's been studies
taurine
on vegans. Right. There's been a lot of studies on vegans, and we know that if you eat like E3 Live, you can
supplement. There's a lot of really smart vegans. I mean, there's guys like Rich Roll,
right?
Like they do things the right way, right? It's laborious. It's a lot easier just to eat a piece of meat, right?
It's very laborious.
To get some of the B12 and some of the other amino acids you're trying to free up by soaking and sprouting and fermenting, which my wife does a lot of. But I watch her. Like she's in the kitchen like 3 hours a day making vegetables bioavailable.
Is your wife vegan?
It takes her hours to make sourdough bread, to actually make a bread where the gluten is pre-digested and it's actually healthy and the glycemic index is lower. She's not vegan. She's just a rancher girl, and she likes to
do kind of stuff like that.
We have goats and chickens and we eat meat. but she's very into like an ancestral preparation of vegetables, you know, deactivating a lot of these stressors that Dr. Stephen Gundry talks about. And, you know, before we podcast, we were talking about Tom Brady and how he does like a no nightshade, no tomato, no potato, you know, and I'd rather eat those things, but actually figure out a way to render them more digestible and friendlier to the human body.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. When people talk about food that has protein in it, you know, like broccoli has so much protein. True. Not really bioavailable, though.
A shit ton of broccoli.
Yeah, it's just not the same. Your body doesn't absorb it the same way it does a grass-fed ribeye steak.
Yeah.
Your body absorbs that protein instantly. It knows exactly what it is.
Yeah. By the way, there was a study that just came out about stem cells. They found that carnosine, which you find in copious amounts in a grass-fed ribeye steak, with blueberry extract enhanced your stem cell production. I mean, it was a hugely significant number. I don't remember the exact percentage, but this combination of polyphenols and flavonols with meat is a good combo. That's why when I did the carnivore diet, or not the carnivore diet, that's when I was eating meat, I was doing lots of salads. I was doing lots of, I had like wild blueberry extract powder. I had these vegetable powders. You know, I was doing a lot of big salads for lunch. Flavonols, polyphenols, any of that.
Yeah.
Same thing with the high saturated fat diet. A high saturated fat diet, like the whole coconut oil thing, is highly inflammatory in the absence of plant polyphenols and flavonols, which is why if you're doing a high fat ketotic diet, it needs to be a plant-rich, high-fat ketotic diet. Otherwise, it's inflammatory.
Things along those lines. You can get a lot of your fats from
avocados, yes, but I'm talking about more like, you know, doing, you know, coconut oil and butter and, you know, your avocado chocolate pudding and all these things, you know, your ketogenic fat bombs and all these recipes that are out there. But you got to eat a lot. You got to eat a lot of plants.
Right.
And even in the animal kingdom, you know, you see animals when they rip up another animal, like a carnivorous animal, they're eating the intestines and they're eating a lot of the organs that are chock full of what? Grass, plants, herbs, whatever that omnivorous animal that the carnivorous animal is eating.
Pre-digested in a lot of cases.
Exactly.
When you're talking about carnivorous diets, the real issue that I have with it is there's almost no research other than Dr. Baker doing those tests on himself, which, according to you, are not very promising. I have some friends that are trying it. My friend Jordan Peterson, his daughter had some serious immune system issues, autoimmune disorders, and like to the point where I believe she's like 30, 31. She's had a hip replaced. She's about to get one of her ankles replaced. Like serious arthritis, real problems. The only thing that's been able to clear that up is meat. Yeah. Just a pure meat diet.
Right.
So with some people, but she might have some
I wouldn't say the
outrageous allergic reaction to plants. I mean, there might be something
I don't think the meat wasn't the medicine, probably the elimination of whatever she eliminated.
I'm saying. Yeah. She might have some sort of a real serious problem, some sort of allergic reaction to some plants or to gluten and maybe a bunch of different things.
That's the way a lot of these diets are, right? It's the elimination, not the magic of just eating meat.
I mean, but Sean Baker keeps going on and on about how meat heals and meat this and meat that, all carnivorous diet, and you know all these people are trying it. Like, man,
it's got a lot of good stuff going for it, but restriction of plant matter, in my opinion, long term is not a good idea. And eating meat all the time long term is not necessarily a good idea. And eating only plants with the absence of some meat-based protein is, for a lot of populations, not that great of an idea.
Yeah, well, that's the point, is that for most people, you're going to have to experiment a little bit to figure out what works best for you. And there are people that, especially if you use E3 Live and algae and get your B12 vitamins and your fat-soluble vitamins, you can live off a vegan diet. It can be done. But you really have to be careful about it. But then there's other people where they can't. And you really have to figure out what the fuck is going on with your own body.
Too.
But this carnivore thing, to me, is kind of tweaking me out because I just don't... It's like they start talking about the poisons and phytotoxins and all these things that are in plants that are bad for you. I'm like, okay, but the issue with that is
mild hormetic exercise is bad for you. Sunlight's bad for you.
Exactly.
All that stuff can kill you because it's a hormetic stressor.
Is that your body responds to that in a positive way?
They even show that some of the rodents outside of Chernobyl are living longer. from the radiation. And I'm not saying like go move your cabin out next to a nuclear disaster website, but the idea is that's a hormetic stressor, right? Like mild amounts of UVA and UVB every day. I actually, every single day, I do cold, every single day I do hot. If I'm not in the sauna, then I'm wearing more clothes than I would normally wear when I go to the gym to get my heart rate up and actually get myself into the discomfort of hot for the heat shock protein and the nitric oxide, everything else that does for you, and then the discomfort of cold because it's a hormetic stressor.
Yeah, they're doing tests right now at Harvard for hot yoga. Yeah. They're trying to figure out if hot yoga has the same hermetic stress response as sauna, because they know there's been quite a bit of work done on sauna.
It's very equivalent physiologically.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean,
that's what I do is hot. I don't do the full choreographed 90-minute Bikram yoga, but I have one of these big saunas. It's like it's a 4-person sauna, and if I go in there by myself, I can do frickin' down dog and push-ups, and I take these Katsu blood flow restriction devices in there and do push-ups and squats, and those are the research behind those for muscle maintenance with body weight training. It's very intriguing. I travel with them everywhere, these Katsu training devices, and I just tie them like tourniquets around my arms, around my legs, and they do a lot of studies in seniors for muscle maintenance without the need for as much joint impact. But what happens is you get micro damage to the capillaries, you get a big release of lactic acid, which causes you to produce more growth hormone after the workout. I mean, in my opinion, for body weight training, like at this point, Katsu training like doubles the effectiveness.
I've heard of that before. I haven't really gotten into it, but I'm very big on the sauna to the point where obviously we have one here at the studio that I use all the time. Yeah, I just think it's it's those stressors that they're talking about as being a negative thing with eating vegetables. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. People have been eating vegetables forever. I don't think they're bad for you.
Excess, or in people like your friend with the immune system issue, or people with leaky gut or damage, there might be a period of time where you actually have to be careful and really careful with gluten, which is a digestive stressor. And again, even that in small amounts is probably good for you. They've even shown that kids who get gluten restricted when they're kids wind up having more issues with gluten later on in life because their guts might be weaker. Right. But yeah, lectins and plant phytochemicals and a lot of things that plants use to poison mammals or to cause their seeds to be undigested and pass out through the digestive tract and the stool of the mammals. So they can grow elsewhere. A lot of that stuff really is, it makes you stronger.
You ever have that coffee, Kopi Luwak? You ever had that stuff?
Is that the weasel?
That's the stuff.
Coffee?
Yeah, the cat, the lemur eats the coffee and shits it out, and then they take the coffee and sell it at this outrageous rate. It's actually delicious.
It ferments in the digestive tract.
It's smooth coffee, man. It's very nice. But you're eating
one
lemur
that
shit.
Elephants do too. It's black ivory coffee.
I'll try that shit. Yeah. But I don't want to support the elephant. I don't give a fuck about lemurs. It's a lemur? I think it's a lemur.
Harvesting coffee beans from elephant poop sounds far more laborious than harvesting from
you get a giant
weasels
chunk.
Or lemurs.
It's huge. Just hose it down.
Probably get better bang for your buck.
Yeah, lemurs, tiny little turds.
I don't know, but one little, it's like a needle in a haystack, right? If it's just a few coffee beans and a giant pile of elephant shit.
You get jacked up, coffeeed up. Elephants
then you
out
got
there
hyper elephants
like
chasing you as you're digging through their shit, chasing you through the field.
Plus, they probably shit like crazy, just like a person does when you eat coffee.
Yeah, give them some L-theanine.
There it is. There it is. Those are coffee turds.
That's almost like a bunch of coffee beans with a few pieces of turd thrown in.
Yeah, look at that. Bam, son.
Their stool is almost completely
Balinese Luwak coffee. So they just feed them nothing but coffee and they shit it out. Sort of like we shit out corn and we can't really digest it properly.
Yeah, there's a fermentation process that makes the bean taste better.
My problem with the carnivore diet is the same problem that I have with the vegan diet. I don't think they're being scientific or objective about it. I think
being dogmatic.
It becomes an ideology.
Yeah.
And the ideology is the meat heals and meat's this and meat's that and meat is the thing and meat is one part of a good diet. Yeah. One part of a healthy diet. And again, for some people, there's some people that have I'm sure you're aware of the Lone Star tick. You know about that, right?
What about it?
Do you know about meat allergies?
No.
Lone Star tick is a tick that bites people and gives them an allergy to red meat. It's horrible for a guy like you
I'm
or a guy
assuming
like
this
me.
is like a Texas tick.
Yes,
yeah.
But it's spreading. It's spreading across the country.
See, all we have up in my land is a ticks that as long as you get them off within 24 hours, that doesn't allow them to produce the saliva that would make them release their hold on your skin, and it's that produces yellow fever, not the actual tick bite itself. So you don't get a lot of Lyme up where I'm at, but I've never heard of this Lone Star
Lyme
tick.
is much more prevalent on the East Coast. But,
it is.
It's starting to make its way out here. There have been some Lyme cases out here in California. But this Lone Star tick is it's a real problem, and it's giving people, it's something called alpha-gal, alpha, short for alpha-gal.
Alpha-galactose.
Yeah, that's
it.
Yeah,
it's like a sugar.
So here it is. It makes you allergic to hot dogs. Alpha-galactose. Alpha-1,3-galactose. Alpha-gal is the most mammalian cell membranes, so the allergy doesn't extend to non-mammalian meat. Poultry and seafood are all fine, which is really interesting. So you can't. Once you get this shit, you're allergic to this alpha-galactose.
But you could eat ape and human meat, according to the article.
Yeah.
So you're not allergic to those.
I wonder if you could eat pig. I wonder if pork. Well, mammalian.
Doubt it.
So you could eat ape meat. Yeah. So if you want to go to the jungle and have what they call bush meat.
Crazy. Okay, speaking of meat, ribeye steaks.
Yeah.
This is how to make these ribeye steaks taste really good. Okay. So what I do on the rub is like a really coarse salt. I use a salt called Kalima salt. Super high in minerals. Really,
it's like kosher salt?
It's coarse. No, it's different. They harvest it from the Mexican coast, and it tastes fabulous. It's really good.
What's it called
The only
again?
salts I travel with and use is Kalima salt, and then this stuff called
Calima?
Colima and black Kona salt. Black Kona salt
from Hawaii?
Kona, from Hawaii. Yeah, I use that when I cook some of the meat from Hawaii, just because it seems right.
Yeah, it does
to use salt from the volcanoes in Hawaii. So, and I rub cayenne, black pepper, salt, and then to reduce the carcinogens that can form when you cook meat, either thyme or rosemary or both. Right, just rub
thyme or rosemary reduces carcinogens.
Yeah, they're
from the charring. Is that the idea?
Yeah, they reduce the formation of I think they call them polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, these things that form on the meat when you blacken the meat, because you want to get a good crisp sear on the outside of the meat, so it's nice and crunchy on the outside. So you restrict a lot of the unhealthy effects of doing that when you get some kind of an herb in there like that. So you take out the meat, you get it to room temperature, you put this rub in, and you take a cast iron skillet. So I don't do it on the grill at all. It's a cast iron skillet. You heat up the cast iron skillet in the oven, and then you take it out of the oven and you put it on the stovetop. You put the stovetop on medium-high, and I either use an extra virgin olive oil. I've used lard before.
Why do you use olive oil when it has a low flash point?
It gives me a good No, extra virgin olive oil has a bunch of antioxidants in it, so it's actually
but it burns easy.
It has higher resistance to the heat. It's never burnt. Wow. Never an issue. Doesn't burn, doesn't smoke.
But when they sear things, that's one thing they tell you is never use olive oil.
Well, I use extra virgin olive. I'm part of an olive oil club, so maybe it's because I have really good olive oil. They ship me 3 bottles of olive oil every quarter from a different part of the world.
Let's find that out because I've really read don't cook things at high heat with olive oil.
Look it up.
Even extra virgin olive oil.
At this point, all I can tell you is this shit
That's
works.
How you do it.
I'm speaking.
You're saying high heat. He said medium heat, and this says medium heat too. So maybe that's the difference: is the high heat. Medium
maybe,
heat.
But when you're searing, I would assume that is kind of a high heat.
So it's not on there for very long. Anyways, extra virgin olive oil into the pan. You heat up the olive oil, and you put it on for maybe 2 minutes max on the cast iron skillet. You heat up the olive oil, then you put the steak on, and you do exactly for a perfect medium rare: 3.5 minutes one side. 3.5 minutes the other side. Then you take it out, and this is where
steaks?
you get. They're probably about that thick.
What is that? So that's an inch and a half.
Oh yeah, we're on audio. It's about an inch and a half. So, anyways, it's like when you asked me on the last podcast how big my dick got after I injected it with stem cells.
About that big.
About that big. So, anyways. Then you put it into the oven. You take that entire cast iron skillet, you put the oven on broil, and you broil it for 1 minute on one side, and then you turn it over and you do 1 minute on the other side. And then you take it out of the oven and you finish it with butter. Meaning when you take it out of the oven, you just take the steak off the cast iron skillet, shove it aside, just put it on a plate, whatever. And you take a pat of butter, and you can infuse the butter, right? You can use like garlic infused butter, but I just use a plain old grass-fed butter. You put a pat of butter on the skillet, you let the butter just get to the point where it's melted a little bit and it's not super brown. You put the steak back on top of the butter, put the burner back on, and you finish it 1 minute each side. let it off, let it rest 3 or 4 minutes. That technique is the best technique for the most perfect steak that you'll ever have.
That sounds very good.
Cooking is really good.
That sounds very good.
It's really good.
Mostly what I do is the reverse sear method with a pellet grill. I keep it at about 250 degrees. You ever use a pellet grill?
Mm-mm.
What I like about pellet grills is you're getting
we had a pellet stove when I was growing up.
Similar.
Horrible.
You're essentially getting hardwood that's compressed. So when they cut hardwood, like for this table, they would take the oak and the sawdust, they would compress into these small pellets. And there's a bunch of different companies. Traeger's a good one. They make one that
I've heard they have good grills.
Yeah, they have good grills, and they also make one that you could use with an app. What I like about it is you can control the temperature completely with your phone. There's a thing called a Timberline. It's one of their new ones. So anyway, you get these compressed pellets, and they go into a hopper, and then there it is right there. That's what kind is that one? A woodwind?
Yeah,
so see
that's
how
what
the pellets,
that's what our pellet stove looked like when I was growing up.
So the pellets go into the hopper, and then at the bottom there's a gear, like a worm drive, that feeds the pellets into that fire at the bottom. Comes from an element. So the element, and then there's a fan. So once it's lit, the element shuts off, and then the fire is stoked by this fan, and it's all temperature controlled, like very, very precisely. One of the good things, what I like about this Traeger that I've seen, is that it seals up like a Yeti cooler. Like it's very insulated and thick, so it's really good at retaining the perfect temperature. And again, you can do it on your phone. So I get it to 250 degrees. Then mostly what I'm cooking is wild game, low fat content, and so you want to make sure you don't dry it out.
Yeah,
so I cook it at a low temperature. I'm cooking it at 250 degrees. I get it to an internal temperature of 120. Then once it hits 120, I pull it out. And
you got to open up the grill to test your internal temp.
No, I have a wire.
You just know now.
I have a wireless.
Oh, you have a wire. Yeah,
a wire, wireless thermometer that's connected to it, and that's outside, so I can always see it. And
that's like what my dry aging fridge has.
Yeah,
just a wireless.
And it's also it lets me know. It gives me a beep when it hits 120, so I know to go and get it. So I pull it out of there.
Highly technical.
Yes, and I pull it out of there, and I use a cast iron skillet as well. But I cook with grass-fed butter. So I take the cast iron skillet, I put it probably same temperature, medium high heat. And again, when I'm got the steak on the grill itself, I'm using sea salt and crushed black pepper and garlic powder. That's what I usually use.
No black ant extract?
No. I'm going to try it now, though. Okay. So then I take it off of there, and then I use grass-fed butter in the cast iron skillet. Once it's heated up, I sear it on both sides for about a minute and a half, and then I let it rest. Depending if I'm ambitious, sometimes I'll let it rest. I'll cover it with aluminum foil and put it in a Yeti cooler, and I'll let it sit in that Yeti cooler for about 10 minutes, and I pull it out, and it is just
It's not too cold after 10 minutes?
It's in the Yeti cooler
right now.
It's in the Yeti cooler. The Yeti cooler maintains the temperature hot and low.
We should have my wife bring steaks. I just text her, get out of the shopping mall, bring us steaks.
A Yoder pellet grill in the back, the cast iron pan.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reverse sear method. The idea is that I'm cooking it to a perfect internal temperature of 120 degrees, which will raise both in the Yeti cooler and also from the searing on the outside. So once I get the cast iron pan heated up to medium high heat, I throw that butter in there and I sear the shit out of the outside for, again, about a minute and a half both sides. Wrap it in foil, put it in the Yeti cooler for 10 minutes. It maintains its temperature, and it continues slowly cooking. So that it gets it somewhere around 135-ish, which is what I like. I take that bad boy out.
This is very precise. This is even more precise. This is like the sound effects is like beep, 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 boop, boop, boop.
I
Just
like
cooking steak.
Beep. Well, I'm a big fan of these pellet grills because you get this real smoky flavor to your food that comes from hardwood, but there's no chemicals. They compress the hardwood sawdust just with natural sugars, the natural sugars in the sawdust. And, there's a bunch of different companies. There's Green Mountain Grill makes a good grill. I got a Yoder at home I really like. Again, Traeger is really good. Most of my friends are using Traegers because this temperature control thing and the apps are so good. To be able to use it on your phone, I'm a big fan of.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, I like the fact that you can.
Sounds good.
You set it and you can just walk the fuck away from it too, and it's going to smoke your meat at 250 degrees and just keep. And it has a good, rich, that smoky flavor, whether it's hickory or cherry, whatever you choose.
The only thing that I have to do, I don't know why I'm like this with a steak, is I still need to dip it in something. In the same way that you dip a prime rib in horseradish. So I use stone mustard. I dip my steak in, like the stone mustard with a little little texture to it. It's perfect.
Fucking hungry.
It's perfect.
Now.
I know.
God
It's freaking the middle of the day on a Tuesday, and I'm hungry.
We went
to Maestro's last night and had steak.
That's a good spot.
It was good. I had a fascinating discussion about artificial sweeteners there with one of the guys who runs Quest Nutrition, and he was talking
what's
about.
His name? Tom
he said
no,
it wasn't Tom. It was Ron Penna. And he was drinking Diet Coke, and we were talking about some of the studies out there on acesulfame potassium and the potential for it to have neurotoxicity or sucralose to cause things like microbiome issues and death of bacteria in the gut. And he was explaining how the amount of artificial sweeteners used in that study was just way far in excess of what you'd get from a diet soda, and that what they call the incretin response, like that spiking of the appetite that is attributed sometimes to the consumption of artificial sweeteners only occurs in people who aren't used to artificial sweetener consumption, and once they've kind of gotten into like a Diet Coke habit, that goes away. Now this is all brand new. This is like 12 hours ago, right? So I haven't started drinking Diet Coke, and I do know they use artificial sweeteners.
But doesn't that sound like a justification?
Some of their bars, and so there might be some of that playing in as well. But he said you could take a shower in Diet Coke and you wouldn't get sticky because there's that's such a small amount of artificial. It's like a dusting of artificial sweeteners in it. So it actually it's making. I haven't delved into the research yet, but it's at least made me think last night about reconsidering my stance. Because what I usually do is I just use stevia and like Pellegrino. Like my refrigerator is just full of Pellegrino.
Do you ever try Zevia?
Because I do a lot. I love Zevia.
I
too.
love that shit.
I love it. Yeah,
I drink the shit out of that stuff.
I got in trouble the other day because I'm so into Z. I was doing that Spartan live feed announcing, and they're sponsored by Fit Aid, right? And they cut to camera, and I had a big old Zevia there, and we're supposed to be pretending we're drinking Fit Aid or
what
whatever.
Is Fit Aid?
So they said, take the Zevia down. Fit Aid, I don't know. I think it's got proteolytic enzymes in it. I think that's the main thing. I could be confusing that with Kill Cliff. That's the other one that kind of flies.
Stuff.
Yeah,
we got a bunch of those.
One of them has proteolytic, which are great. They break down fibrinogen. They're wonderful for recovery, these enzymes. And I don't know how many of them they have. Dude, it's like that...
Blood orange Kill Cliff. Used as a marinade for wild pork. Holy baby Jesus.
Really?
Woo!
That's like beer can chicken.
Well, that's one of the things...
I wonder if that's because... Well, proteolytic enzymes... One of the reasons they work is they break down fibrinogen, and they're almost like an enzyme, right? That same thing if you have no marinade and nothing at all to tenderize meat, you get your digestive enzymes, your on it gut pack or whatever you have around, and you break open the capsules and you sprinkle that on top of the meat. It's like a form of ceviche almost, right? Like you do with lemon and lime and fish.
It's a phenomenal marinade for meat.
That's probably Kill Cliff orange. I'm guessing Kill Cliff is the one with the enzymes. It just tastes so
good too.
Yeah,
it's just so delicious, and you're getting very little sugar.
Yeah,
it's just deliciousness.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. But I go with Pellegrino. Pellegrino it's less acidic than Perrier, and it has a lot of sodium bicarbonate in it. I don't know if you looked into these studies on baking soda for athletic performance and its ability to be able to buffer lactic acid.
Really?
It's a potent ergogenic aid, but the problem is that it causes gut distress when you take as much as they use in a lot of these studies. And so more and more what the studies are doing is you're dosing, right, with small amounts of baking soda for 2 to 3 hours leading into your workout. So my philosophy is this. If Pellegrino has pretty high levels of sodium bicarbonate in it, which it does, it's got more sodium bicarbonate in it than any of the other bottled waters, like twice as much as Gerolsteiner and any of these other waters out there, I'm kind of dosing with a little bit of a lactic acid buffer all day long. So anytime I want to jump into a workout, I'm able to push myself a little bit harder.
Do you notice a difference between... Yeah.
I know of zero Pellegrino studies on this.
But do you notice a difference physically between not...
I feel amazing when I drink that stuff all day long. I drink that, and I drink this... it's hydrogen-enriched water. Molecular hydrogen. This foundation called the Molecular Hydrogen Foundation. They do studies on the anti-inflammatory and antioxidant potential of water that has a lot of hydrogen ions in it. It's called hydrogen-rich water. And the cool part about that is that, the only other thing I know of that can do this are green tea polyphenols, is they act as an anti-inflammatory, post-exercise without blunting the hormetic response, that positive, beneficial, stressful response we were talking about with exercise. And so you can have your cake and eat it too, right? You get your antioxidants, you shut down inflammation, and it doesn't blunt. In this case, the hormetic response to exercise would be the proliferation of satellite cells and the production of new mitochondria, which is why you shouldn't take a bunch of vitamin C and vitamin E and some of these high antioxidant compounds post-workout. Same reason you shouldn't do a cold bath post-workout. And the idea is that hydrogen-rich water allows you to shut down inflammation without blunting that hormetic response.
Why shouldn't you take a cold bath post-workout? And is there there's a certain period of time where they think you could, but it's you have to give your body a time to adjust.
Right. For me, I go 2 or 3 hours. As far as like some people say, don't jump into the cold bath 15 minutes after workout.
I've heard an hour
or cryo
is the right
chamber.
way, according to Rhonda Patrick.
I wait 2 or 3 hours, and
2 to 3 hours.
I don't know if Rhonda's basing that on research or if it's an extrapolation or what, but I wait a couple hours. Now that the exception to that rule is that if you exercise any closer than 3 hours to bedtime, it elevates body temperature to the point where it affects your deep sleep cycles, right? So, and one reason for that is because your core temperature is elevated. So for me, if I do an evening workout, and I do, hard later afternoon, early evening workouts quite often, I will still take a cold shower. I actually have a giant I bought one of those endless pools, like those fitness pools that you swim in, and I keep it out in the forest behind my house, and it's just chock full of cold water.
Yeah, we talked about that the last time here. I love that idea.
But it decreases your core temperature and allows you to sleep better later on if you do that after an evening workout. So even though it probably restricts the efficacy of the workout a little bit,
lets you sleep better.
Yeah, my reasoning is that I'm going to sleep way better, and the benefits I get from a good solid night's sleep outweigh any loss of benefit from decreasing a little bit of that mitochondrial density and satellite cell proliferation.
So when you're doing this late night workout, how long before you go to sleep are you doing this?
What research has shown is that it's ideal to finish a hard workout within 3 hours before bedtime if you don't want to mess up your sleep. Exactly.
But with your cold bath, you can probably mitigate some of the...
Right. And I go to bed pretty early. I usually go to bed by usually 9:30, 9:45, I'm in bed reading, and I'm asleep around 10:30. So if I'm not finishing up a workout till like 7:30, which is the case sometimes, I finish work, I'm not getting into the workout until like 6:45, 7. Like sometimes I'm working out closer to bedtime than 3 hours. So in that case, I'll do the cold shower.
Did a podcast recently with Dr. Matthew Walker about sleep, and it's kind of changed the way I feel about sleep and the importance of it, and how much you need. I used to think you could just power through and get through with like 3-4 hours a night and you'd be fine.
You can.
Yeah, but it fucks you up.
Well, there's exceptions to that. Some people have this, I think it's the DEC2 gene that allows you to actually get by on a lot less sleep. Some members of the population have that gene.
It's a very small member of the population.
It's a small member, but furthermore, there's this guy named Dr. Nick Littlehales is his name. I could have really messed up his name right there. Dick Littlehales. Anyways, he's got this concept. He works with a lot of these European soccer teams. And what he looks at is not the 7 to 9 hours of sleep, not how many hours of sleep per night you get, but the number of sleep cycles, right, from stage 1 to stage 5 sleep that you get throughout the course of the week, meaning you're supposed to get 31 to 35 sleep cycles over 7 days. And so you might get 3 sleep cycles one night and 5 sleep cycles another night. And he also, I haven't seen research to back this up, but this is what he does with his athletes, is he counts a 20 to 30 minute power nap as a sleep cycle. So technically you could sleep 4 hours one night, and then you could do an 8-hour sleep night on a Saturday and a 20-minute nap on a Sunday, and then you add up all your sleep cycles, and you can use any self-quantification device to, if you want to actually measure how many times you're cycling during a night of sleep, and you look at that instead of, am I getting a consistent 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night? You look at the total sleep. I literally just wrote an article about this morning on my website.
You should listen to the podcast with Matthew Walker, because he's pretty in depth about what's recommended and why, and the risk of Alzheimer's for people that get less than 5 hours sleep a night, and
I believe
anything
it.
less than
I'm a
7.
sleep hog. I'm a sleep hog. But
what are you getting every night?
I am for 24-hour cycles getting about 8 hours, which means like if I sleep 7 hours, I take a 20 to 45-minute nap in the
That sounds
afternoon.
perfect.
I'm a big napper, and my naps are very elaborate.
Well, you work out extremely hard.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not working out as hard as some of these pro athletes who are needing like 10 hours of sleep a night.
Right, but for the average person.
Oh, I have these Normatec boots that I lay in, these gradated compression boots that kind of move the compression from the ankle all the way up to the hips.
Yeah.
And I lay on this biomat, which is like laying on a warm teddy bear. It's like this mat that makes infrared rays, so it's like an infrared radiation mat, almost like a sauna. And then I've got these binaural, not binaural beats. It's an artificial intelligence-based audio that confuses your brain and lulls you into this total state of relaxation. It's called Brain FM. So I lay on my back, and I've got the boots on, and I have the mat on, and I know
do this every night?
I'm sounding like a princess now, but I have an assistant who lives at my house, and she really helps out with a lot of stuff. She does the banking, and she helps out with bringing stuff to the post office, and she's just there whenever I need her to do stuff, and she helps out. She's back home with the kids right now, so she's just kind of like a live-in assistant. And every day about 12:30 or 1, she goes up to my bed, she lays out the biomat, she plugs it in, she pushes it on my temperature, she lays out the Normatec boot, she pushes the pillow out with the sleep mask and the headphones, and then I just go up there after lunch and I lay down for about 45 minutes, and I'm just dead to the world. And
that's a pretty sweet setup.
Yeah, it's a good setup.
That's if you could find a live-in person
nap.
like that you trust.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not crazy.
So the idea with sleep, though, is if you nap and if you pay closer attention to the number of sleep cycles that you get each week, I think that's more important than getting like 7 to 9 hours a night.
How would you know how many sleep cycles unless you're monitoring it? Are you using that ring?
Monitor it.
Is that what you're monitoring with? You got one of those?
Yeah, I use one of these. And the ring's pretty accurate. I mean, it's not as accurate as a sleep lab study, but it's accurate.
Kevin Rose tried to get me to wear one of those things.
Yeah, it's big. They've got another one that's smaller, but
it seems
I
very rock starish.
It does.
Very Gene Simmons-like.
Yeah, exactly. I need a lot of necklaces and bling to go along with it, but it works. I found it in Finland like 4 years ago, and I bought it, and I really have been using it ever since. It does like my sleep temperature.
There it is.
My
they've shrunk it.
That's the littler one.
The smart ring that helps you get more restorative,
they just
whatever.
redesigned it, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, the Aura, OU. I wish I'd have invested in the company because they seem to be like everywhere now. And
how's it helping you get more sleep?
I was at a Finland biohacking conference, and there was this tiny little table with one guy at it selling this little ring, and all of a sudden it's just like,
is that a diamond?
Now.
Are those diamonds?
I don't.
What is that? Is that light?
I don't know if they're real.
What's that? Is that bling?
Good.
Are they trying to say it's bling? That's bling.
It's bling.
That's diamonds.
They're blinging it up.
Letting bitches know.
But it's kind of cool because you can pull up your body temperature during the night. So a woman could use this to track her cycles. It will tell you your heart rate variability, which I used to measure every morning when I wake up. I'd look at my parasympathetic and my sympathetic nervous system score, and then I'd be able to tell if I should do a hard workout that day or if I should do an easy workout that day.
Ring?
Well, now the ring it measures it all during the night.
Right.
Like it does 5-minute measurements throughout the night while I'm asleep. So I wake up, I can get a running average of my HRV.
And you're getting this on your smartphone, or?
And then it pairs that with like how hard I worked out the day before, my heart rate, my body temperature. And then it tells me, here's your readiness score. So if my readiness score is at like 60%, then I'm going to go in the sauna and do yoga, right? And if my readiness score is like 90, I'll go out and do the obstacle course at my house and swing kettlebells and beat up the body a little bit more. So it's pretty useful.
Is it ever at 100?
I've never seen it at 100.
What would that mean? Like, why wouldn't it be?
I bet if I took a 2-hour nap in that mat with the boots, it'd probably get up to 100.
Those Normatec boots, they sent them to me. I sent them to my friend Cam. I'm not wearing them. I don't.
Cameron Haynes.
Yeah.
But he runs a lot. They're probably good. Have you seen, they have them for the arms. They have them for the arms and the hips too. You can be like a giant marshmallow man.
What does it do for you?
I would imagine if you do a lot of upper body activity, like maybe you're a pitcher, maybe a swimmer, boxer, someone who's doing a lot of upper body activity, that the arms would be efficacious.
It is.
Yeah, they look kind of silly and they're kind of hard to get on by yourself.
Yeah.
So that would be one more thing for my assistant to have to help me with.
What is it doing again?
It's gradated compression. So it's apparently a form of compression that they've patented, unlike a lot of the other boots out there, to where the first time it inflates, it measures the diameter of your limbs. and then it bases every subsequent compression to be customized to the diameter or the girth of your limbs and pump the blood. In this case, if you're wearing the feet or the leggings from your ankles all the way up to your hips.
You had a picture of was that Lomachenko in those one of those earlier pictures? This one? No, it was another one earlier than that.
It works. I mean, your legs feel light as a feather after you use them. Yeah.
And so this compression, like as it's doing the compressing, what is it doing to the legs by just compressing?
Just pumping. It's pumping blood, like up and away from all the extremities and
just moving it around better. Is that the idea?
No, it's moving it back up to your heart, just circulating blood throughout your body. Yeah.
So but it's almost like an additional heart.
It's like a massage.
Like a massage.
But I don't know if the heart is not a pump, then it's not like an additional heart.
I'm not sure if I buy that horse shit.
Yeah. Anyways, though, so they work though, and they're incredibly relaxing. It's almost like someone's massaging you while you're taking a nap.
Seems like a good thing to do to watch TV with.
Yeah. Well, you can kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
Like you can.
Look at that. Woo.
Oh, wow. He's got the full meal deal. This guy has the arms on. He's got
Max Holloway.
The legs on. Now, this is a little bit, it could get expensive to do that because now you got to have 2 inflation units rather than just one because you can't plug them all in at once. So that's a spendy setup. But
that's the UFC featherweight champ.
One way well, if he's the UFC featherweight champ, he can afford the Cadillac of Marshmallow Man suits.
Well, he's at Honolulu cryotherapy getting his freak on.
That's what a lot of these cryotherapy centers have now. Is they've got the walking cryotherapy, they've got the Normatec boots, they've got the vibration platform, so you can lose weight while you're standing there on the vibration platform.
Yeah.
Burn a lot of fat.
What do you think about those things, those ultrasonic things? You know what I'm talking about? What are those called?
No.
Turbosonics. You ever seen those
They're
platforms?
A vibration platform.
Yeah, they go through like a whole cycle. Like
yes. When I was in Park City, I did one of those. Yeah.
They make you feel great,
dude. I had to go take a shit right after.
Oh yeah, busted all loose.
Seriously, no, I'm serious. I was on that thing for like 8 minutes, and I said, "Excuse me," and I had a glorious dump afterwards.
Yeah,
so
shaking all your pipes loose.
I have a mini trampoline at my house, and I jump up and down on that thing in the mornings, and it gets everything moving.
Yeah,
that's like my 1-2 combo for having a really good dump in the mornings. Is there's this herbal blend called Triphala, Triphala, and I put about a half teaspoon of that into a cup, and it's super bitter. So I put some stevia in there or something to sweeten it up a little bit. Then I pour the hot water over that, and you have that at night, right, before you go to bed. Then you wake up in the morning, and you could use a vibration platform. You could do the Tai Chi bouncing. That's another thing some people will do, where you just kind of bounce up and down like this.
Skip
rope. Get things moving. Or you can jump on a trampoline. You could probably skip rope too. And that 1-2 combo just gets things moving amazingly. Yeah.
Have a couple double espressos before that too.
Well, I do the hot cup of coffee in the morning. I don't put anything in my coffee.
Black.
But my protocol for staying lean. I did this because I used to be 215 pounds and I had to shed a lot of weight to get into Ironman triathlon. So I did Ironman triathlon for about 8 years. And the way that I stayed lean for races was you get up in the morning and you have a cup of coffee or green tea. Right, because both of those can help to mobilize fatty acids from adipose tissue. And you do this when you're in that fasted state that I was talking about, right? So you wake up after a 12 to 16-hour fast, and you take the cup of coffee or the green tea. And then you go exercise or move aerobically for whatever time you have available, 20 to 45 minutes. Doesn't have to be that long. And the reason that you do it aerobically is because when you wake up in the morning, you already have a lot of cortisol in your system. Right, there's no need to just stress yourself even more by doing a very hard workout. I like to ease my way into the day. I like a non-stressful morning unless I've got a very busy day and I know that I'm not going to get a hard workout at any other time. I save my hard workout for the later afternoon or the early evening when your body temp peaks and your grip strength peaks and your post-workout reaction time or your post-workout protein synthesis peaks. Your reaction time peaks, like your body is very equipped to do a hard workout in the afternoon or the evening more than it is in the morning.
Well, the way you can really tell is jiu-jitsu. My jiu-jitsu training in the morning, I'm way weaker. I just don't feel the same.
Yeah.
In the afternoon, you have much more energy.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is also when you do a hard workout in the morning, you get a lot of times post-workout caloric compensation, meaning you just want to eat everything in sight until freaking lunch. You're just hungry, and part of it's probably physical because you empty your glycogen stores more quickly, and part of it probably is mental, right? Like I fucking punished it this morning. I deserve to have a few extra slices of bread with lunch. So the idea is I get up, I do the coffee, and then I'll do the 20 to 45 minutes of easy movement. And that might be the yoga in the sauna. It'll be a walk in the sunshine, so I'm getting my vitamin D. And I'll do like breath work, where I'll breathe in through my nose and do breath holds. So I'm still kind of making my body better, but I'm not stressing it out with a lot of eccentric muscle tissue damage. And then I finish up that whole session with a cold shower. So I'm getting a lot of those benefits of white adipose tissue to brown fat conversion in the absence of any inflammation, right? Inflammation and calories keep the white fat from getting converted into brown fat, which is what you want when you're doing a cold shower or a cold soak or some kind of cold thermogenesis. And I'm able to stay super lean with that protocol. You get up, caffeine, aerobic exercise in a fasted state, you finish up with a cold. And I mean, even if you weren't working out, you can stay pretty lean with that type of protocol.
And this is what you did specifically to try to lose weight, to go from when you were bodybuilding?
I did it originally to just shed muscle. And then I would do really long catabolic chronic cardio endurance workouts, which are not that great for you. Right? But I would just, I would go just on 4-hour rides. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when you were doing this, were you calorie restricting as well? Like taking
I was calorie restricting. You'd go to bed at night and you'd be staring at the ceiling hungry. Like you're trying to lose weight, right?
So your body starts eating yourself.
Your body starts eating yourself. Now for these fasted workouts, if you are going to do a fasted hard workout in the morning, you can stay anabolic, but relatively non-insulinogenic without spiking your blood glucose too heavily with something like amino acids. All right, so it's like a lot of people will do a branched chain amino acid or an essential amino acid. You elevate your blood levels of amino acids. It keeps you anabolic. It allows you to stave off central nervous system fatigue, keeps you from shedding too much muscle, and you just spike your blood levels of amino acids and then go into your workout. And you could even throw something like ketones into the mix too. So that's like a very hypocaloric way to get a pre-workout sup in without actually getting a lot of calories in at the same time.
And we were talking before the podcast about different athletes and diets and things along those lines, and you were saying that you don't think it's a good idea for a pro athlete, particularly like a basketball player, to be on a ketogenic diet.
Yeah. I don't think that a strict ketogenic diet is a good strategy. I think that a cyclic ketogenic diet would be the way to go for something like that.
Yeah, Zach Bitter.
And that's exactly what I do, is I'll eat almost zero carbohydrates the entire day. Plants, starches, fats. I think I told you about my morning smoothie the last time I was on, and it's just, like coconut milk and bone broth and these precursors to NAD, which is another that probably next to stem cells is one of the most potent anti-aging protocols that you can engage in.
NAD stands for?
Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide is what that is. And I can tell you about that in a second after I'll just briefly tell you about this cyclic ketogenic diet. Basically, it's all plants, all fats, no carbs or very low carbs the entire day. And then in the evening, and this is where the beauty of that scenario I talked about earlier fits in, because you've done your hard afternoon or early evening workout. So your GLUT4 transporters are very upregulated, you're very insulin sensitive, and any carbohydrates that you do eat are far more likely to be shuttled into muscle or liver glycogen, rather than hanging around the bloodstream causing inflammation, or rather than being, shuttled to the liver and converted into triglycerides. You're basically using the carbohydrates that you do eat at the end of the day to sock away energy for the next day's hard, glycolytically demanding workout. Right? And so basically you're teaching your body how to be a fat burning machine all day long. You're restricting any amount of glycemic variability all day long, assuming you're not doing the carnivorous diet, because high amounts of meat, it's gluconeogenic. It can spike blood glucose. But you're essentially doing lots of plants, a moderate amount of fats, and some amount of protein, but not a crazy amount of protein all day long. And then with dinner, we'll do, Jessa makes sourdough bread, and we'll have sweet potato fries, and my kids will make rice cakes, or dark chocolate, red wine. Any of that stuff is all in the evenings. So that refills your glycogen stores for anything explosive and demanding, and then you just rinse, wash, and repeat the next day. So that's a cyclic ketogenic diet.
Now, this is cyclic in one individual 24-hour session, but are you experiencing states of ketosis during the day?
Yeah, absolutely.
With that sort of diet?
Absolutely. So I have a device called a Level in my office, LEVL, and it's a breath ketone device. It's just quicker and more convenient than a blood stick. It's also
is it just as effective?
Long term, it's a good proxy. It's a good approximation.
LEVL?
LEVL. There's another one called the Ketonics, and you can get just like a ketone monitor, a blood ketone monitor. But if people don't want to do a blood prick every day, I type. I don't like having the Band-Aids on the fingers when I'm trying to write things on my lap. It's easier for me to just breathe into a tube when I walk into my office.
There it is.
I'm easily
breathe,
that's
measure,
exactly.
track and adjust.
Yeah.
So weird how this has become such a massive part of culture these days, is measuring your ketones. And you just constantly hear people talking about it, and it's so fatty.
Yeah.
Fad-y,
Now,
Yeah,
I get it. It's funny. Fatty.
I
Anyways,
didn't mean it. I just I said it, and I had to explain what I was saying because it sounded weird to me.
Yeah. Anyways, though, the cyclic ketogenic diet allows you to be back in the state of ketosis by that morning easily, and then you just basically maintain that all day long. Then you refuel on carbohydrates at the end of the day. And then there was another question that you asked, about NAD. That's something completely different. But that's the cyclic ketogenic diet. That's how it works.
So your body having those carbohydrates at night knocks you out of ketosis, right? When you're eating the bread and all that stuff.
Your blood glucose will rise. You're not going to be shuttling a lot of acetyl-CoA, which is the precursor to ketones and to ketone generation.
And then you're going through a 16-hour fasting cycle.
But then you have a 12 to 16-hour fasting cycle. You get up, you do the fasted morning aerobic workout, the cold shower, a little bit of coffee or green tea, and it's a perfect scenario. It works perfectly. I'm telling you, you start your day off like that, and then you end your day with the carbohydrates. You do the hard afternoon workout, the easy morning workout, and it like for metabolism, for body composition, for maintaining fitness, for teaching yourself how to be a fat burning machine while still refilling the body with carbohydrate stores. It's a beautiful scenario.
Also, I just think there's some benefit in enjoying what you eat too, and not constantly worrying about your glucose levels and ketones and all that stuff. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a little bread or a little pasta or something like that every now and again.
There's nothing wrong with it, and it's also my beef with the carnivore diet is I like sweet potato fries, and I like I like cauliflower rice, and I like all sorts of different plants and vegetables. Now this NAD, you can get these injections or IVs now. And it is something that enhances your own stem cell proliferation, but it is one of the most potent anti-aging molecules you can put into your body in terms of decreasing the rate at which your telomeres shorten. So you've probably heard a lot of these sirtuin-rich foods like blueberries and cacao and chocolate and resveratrol, and a lot of them work, but the most powerful of any of these is NAD, and your NAD to NADH ratio is highly reflective of your telomere health. And these are the most horribly painful and uncomfortable injections or IVs you'll ever get in your life. You can do it orally. There's a capsule. There's companies like Elysium and Niagen that sell NR.
I take that stuff.
Nicotinamide riboside. It's a precursor to NAD, but it doesn't hold a candle to just mainlining it into your bloodstream.
And how do you get it? Where do you get it from?
One way to do it is in a medical clinic. You can get a 6 to 8 hour IV. You bring your laptop in, you work away, and some people do this on a monthly basis. Just
6 to 8 hours of NAD.
It's a long drip.
They do it on a monthly basis, so they just pick a day a month.
Some of the guys down at On It do it, and they'll have a nurse come in and push it a little bit more quickly. That's like an hour-long IV.
Is it just beneficial to do it short like that?
It's way more uncomfortable. The shorter you get, the more uncomfortable it gets because you're pushing this stuff into your bloodstream more quickly, and it feels like your whole body is on fire. I mean, you have to box breathe and close your eyes and meditate.
Is it painful?
It's like, have you ever done DMT? Mm-hmm. It's like DMT, but you're on fire and getting punched in the gut at the same time, and you feel like your heart's going to explode.
Really?
And then you finish, and you feel like Superman. You feel like you have more energy on less sleep. Your workouts are better. I mean, it's like fish oil, where when you take a bunch of fish oil, you just kind of keep your fingers crossed that it's working. It's not like you can feel fish oil and you want to go destroy the world. It's even better than black ant extract.
Where are you getting
So you can get it too so I get it shipped to my house, and I do a self-administered push IV. I do the same thing with Myers cocktails. So I shove a butterfly needle into my vein, and then I push this NAD in very, very slowly. And you can even chase it with a Myers cocktail, which enhances the effectiveness of it. Meaning you can do like an NAD, and this is a common protocol in a lot of anti-aging clinics or a lot of alternative health clinics. Is you do the NAD injection and you follow that up with the Myers cocktail, and you feel like Superman.
And Myers cocktail is again?
That's just vitamins, right? It's like vitamin B.
IV infusion?
Yeah, okay. It's IV infusion of vitamin B, and sometimes a little nootropics in there like lithium and stuff like that.
It's too much to remember, man.
Oh, but it's...
How do you keep all this shit in your head?
I'm a complete idiot about anything except health and nutrition and fitness. That's how. Like, I don't know. I don't watch TV and I don't follow politics or anything like that.
Good for you.
I just study health.
Keep the poison out.
Yes, exactly. It's like Sherlock Holmes when Watson tells him his name, and he says, "I'm going to work hard to forget that," because he doesn't want anything cluttering up his head at all, aside from his sleuthing.
So, is there an NAD place in LA? Where I could go and do this?
Yes. I was speaking with somebody yesterday about this, and he asked me if I could find a clinic, and I found one in Beverly Hills. And it's probably one of the long IVs. So you want to wait till you have some computer work to do, and you can sit on your laptop and just kind of get stuff done.
6 to 8 hours. Yeah. Or you could just listen to podcasts.
Or you can push it in about 15 to 20 minutes. Woo! And you can have a nurse practitioner do this. And then there's some clinics that will do it's called a push IV, an NAD push IV. So I'm doing this. It's just as
beneficial, just more painful.
I'm doing this once a week now, and it's the most painful 10 to 20 minutes of my entire week, but you feel amazing. And I'm testing my telomere length with this company called TeloYears. There's another one, I forget the name of the other company that tests your telomere length. There's only a couple out there. So it tests the rate at which your telomeres are shortening. And the two things that have had the most profound effect on my results from that test have been the stem cell injections intravenously and the NAD injections. My biological age right now, which started off at an age of 37 when I was 34, and then decreased to 35 when I tested again at 36 years old. I just tested at 37 years old, and my biological age is 20 in terms of the rate at which my telomeres are shortening. And the only two things that have changed have been the stem cell injections 20? And the NAD injections.
Dude,
so in terms of your
out.
biological age, you can reverse your biological age. Now, there is some...
side effects?
No. So the telomere test is a test of your white blood cell telomere length, which is not reflective of every cell in your body, right? So technically, it's not an ironclad test with a ton of research behind it, but it's an approximate corollary to your biological age. It's the best we have right now to be able to test telomere length, but I'm not going to pretend like it's a gold standard test, and I'm not aware of a gold standard test for telomere length, but I can tell you that I feel amazing, and that telomere length is shortening, and those NAD injections just make you feel like Superman.
So do you think it's a combination of the things, or would you attribute it more to the NAD?
That's the problem with this shit I do, dude.
You do so many different things. Yeah.
And there's stuff you can do to enhance your own endogenous stem cell production. We were talking about meat, and I told you about that study with where we were talking about the carnosine and the blueberry extract. That's one. Chlorella is another. Colostrum is fantastic for that, for endogenous stem cell health. Coffee berry fruit extract. That's another really fascinating one. You can buy that on Amazon as a powder. And I put a lot of this stuff in my morning smoothie now. So when I wake up, I've got chlorella, I've got DHA, I've got this stuff called Pau de Arco bark tea, which also enhances your own NAD production. Colostrum, bone broth, vitamin C to enhance the bone broth uptake. So you can kind of make yourself a little cocktail of ingredients that you just take in the morning without necessarily spending, $8,000 on a stem cell extraction and injection.
Have you thought about having some sort of an online thing where people could subscribe to a protocol and you would, Well,
what I thought about doing was just making like a supplement or something like that, like where you could take all this stuff and just combine it into a shake or into some kind of a supplement.
Some sort of a powder or something.
Yeah, and I mean, some people who don't understand the supplement industry or formulation say, well, why don't you just put all this stuff in a capsule? But I mean, you one compound can decrease the absorptibility of the other compound, or one compound will create it in an acidic or an alkaline scenario in which the other one doesn't work well. So it would require a lot of testing. But ultimately, at this point, I just blend it all in a blender and kind of keep my fingers crossed and dump it all into my big ass mug and
but it seems like someone like you who knows so much about this stuff, it would be a great resource if people could subscribe to something and you guys could put together some sort of a protocol for people that they could follow it on a daily basis.
Could, but you're creating more work for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, dude.
Yeah. But it would. The problem is genetic variability, right? Like this whole high-fat diet, and I saw yesterday that you tweeted out, my friend Nina Teicholz's, data, encouraging the high saturated fat intake, and I love her and I love her approach, and I love the idea that she is getting a lot of people, via lobbying to focus less on grains and a high carb diet, which I think is helpful for a lot of people. But at the same time, there are genes, right? Like the PPAR1 alpha gene, which would cause a little bit of an inflammatory response to high intake of fats or to a lot of saturated fats without a lot of poly or monounsaturated fats. I think the last time that we talked about familial hypercholesteremia, right? Where some people, if they shift to a ketogenic or a high-fat diet, it screws them from a metabolic standpoint because they get not only high cholesterol, but high particle count and oxidation of that cholesterol. There's ways around that. For example, like a Ketovan diet would be what you'd consume if you were eating or if you had this familial hypercholesteremia, where you'd eat a lot of tubers and fish and coconut meat and wild plants, and that's technically like a 70 to 80% carbohydrate based diet. Not with a lot of grains, not with a lot of junk food, but that would be a diet more appropriate for someone with that issue. Someone with a PPAR gene issue, they'd want to eat less of the coconut oil and the butter and the cheeses and more of like the avocados and the extra virgin olive oil and more of the Mediterranean diet approach. I mentioned earlier that the fact that coconut oil and a lot of these saturated fats and a lot of people are inflammatory, so they would want to eat a lot of antioxidants and flavanol and polyphenol rich, small non-sugary berries and dark leafy greens. And so, yeah, again, you could have a subscription-based service that teaches people a lot of these things, but then once again, you got to have either artificial intelligence that's screening each person to look at what they actually need, or you've got a real person talking to each person, looking at their labs and saying, okay, this is the one that would work well for you, rather than just saying, okay, this is Ben smoothie, everybody should be drinking this. Right.
Yeah, I went to this one thing once where they monitored my blood, and I abandoned it immediately because they told me I shouldn't have avocados. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like,
that's an IgG food allergy test, and the problem is that you produce a lot of these immunoglobulins to foods that you eat a lot. So people will be like, I love eggs and they do this test and they walk out depressed with their tail between their legs because they can't have avocados and eggs anymore, and it's because they were eating a shit ton of avocados and eggs. It's dumb, right? Yeah, there's one called a Cyrex food allergy panel. It's a little more, you don't get this huge laundry list of foods that give you false positives. It's a pretty accurate test. That's the one that I use.
Knew it was nonsense. I was like, I feel great. I eat avocados all the time. This can't be anything other than nonsense.
Yeah. Well, it's not nonsense. I mean,
it's nonsense in the sense of the
technically have the immunoglobulin reaction to avocados, and there's no bodies in the streets and no evidence that that's going to actually hurt you.
Yeah. That's the problem. It's just you would have to go on some sort of a very neutral diet for a long period of time, get your body's baseline established. Get your blood work done along the way.
Whatever, rice for a month, and then get it taken. No proteins at all.
And even then, what would that do with your blood?
You could probably do like a washout, like a 5-day fast. And that's that new Valter Longo longevity diet. Is you do, I think it's once a quarter 5-day fasts. Right, to clean you out, to get all the benefits of cellular autophagy. And with that particular diet, I was talking before about how long-term calorie restriction is bad for you, and this whole idea of intermittent fasting with caloric restriction creates hormone deficits and associated with like gallstones and all sorts of nasty things happen to your body when you don't give it enough calories.
What about long-term, like, when people go on those 5-day fasts, like Dom D'Agostino's?
Right, that's Valter Longo's approach is you do a 5-day fast just a few times a year. And I think in active individuals and athletes, he only recommends like 2 or 3 times a year max that you do this 5-day fast, and you put it in an off season or a recovery phase or some period of time where you're not training heavily. And that scenario would allow you to get a lot of the cellular autophagy and the cleanup benefits. And theoretically, you could do that, right? And then go get your food allergy test. Right. And then see what kind of proteins are floating around in your bloodstream.
And you're doing a 24-hour fast how often?
What works for me because I don't do well not eating for 5 days. I'm too active. Like I just have too much shit going on. Like there aren't many times during the year when I could point out a 5-day slot in my schedule where I'm not hunting or competing or working out or doing something that requires me to need calories, or else I'm already skinny, right? Like I can't go for a long time without eating, and my metabolism is sky high. So what I do is a 12 to 16 hour fast every day, not a calorically restricted fast, but just 12 to 16 hours without eating every single day. On the lower activity days, I take in less protein and I restrict meat. Right, so on the days where I'm not beating up my body too much, like a Wednesday and a Sunday, which are more recovery days, those are the days when I do, I call those my self-love days, right? Like I do clay masks and coffee enemas and infrared therapy. So I'm still
coffee enemas, self-induced.
Dude, for upregulating your own glutathione production, your you feel clean as a whistle.
Plus, it's the best way to get coffee up your butt.
Oh, dude.
There's no other way.
Yeah, you do get a lot of caffeine absorption too. No, but I'm serious. Like if you've never done something like that and experienced what it feels like to just be completely cleaned out, it's a pretty good feeling.
So what does it do to you?
The coffee enema not only cleans out your colon, but it causes your liver and your gallbladder specifically to increase bile production. It upregulates your glutathione production, your endogenous glutathione production. And so you're increasing your own production of antioxidants, and it also causes peristalsis, right? You just move stuff through that's kind of moving slowly. So once a week, Wednesday mornings, I get up. My wife makes coffee every morning. I have her make an extra pot. I just leave that out on the counter until it gets to room temperature. And normally when I'm drinking my coffee, I'm going through all my morning research and articles and everything down I have a standing desk in the basement. But instead I go and I lay on my right side on the bathroom floor, and I keep coffee in there for about 20 minutes while I'm working. And then I get up and you just let it all out. And
you lay on your back with the coffee in your butt?
I get a stainless steel enema bucket. So you're not injecting plastics.
Jesus,
so you're not injecting plastics up your butt. And then it's about a quart or so of coffee in the backside with this tube. It's a lot of coffee.
Jesus.
And then you lay on your right side for 20 minutes, and then you get up and you let it all out. And of course I have the squatty potty, so it comes out more easily. Of course, you don't have that kink in your colon.
I got one of those.
And everything comes out, and you walk away just like whistling with a big smile on your face.
That squatty potty is legit.
And you feel wonderful. The squatty potty works. Yeah.
We really should be shitting into a hole in the ground.
When I don't have one, I perch.
Do you?
And my best dumps are when I'm hunting or I'm camping, or I just don't have a toilet. You hold onto a tree and you kind of
do it like a normal person,
and it's perfect. So on those days that I'm doing coffee enemas or sauna or any of my weird woo-woo things that don't involve workouts, I do protein restriction because I'm not beating up my body that much. Coffee enema doesn't cause a lot of eccentric muscle tissue damage unless you've done something horribly wrong. So I basically have those days as my lower protein days. And then once a week, and this would be unless I'm traveling because it's harder to do when you travel, I do a 24-hour fast. Saturday at dinner, you stop eating, sleep all night. All you got to do is skip breakfast on Sunday and skip lunch on Sunday, and then have dinner on Sunday night. And that's pretty easy to do. And so I get the benefits of the longer fast, right? Because a lot of those cellular autophagy and endogenous stem cell production benefits don't kick in until you're about 16 hours in. Right, so I get that benefit once a week, even though for me, really, it comes out to about twice a month that I'm actually at home because I travel so much doing that full 24-hour fast. And I do a lot of work that day. I play with my kids. I just fill things in throughout that day to keep my appetite satiated. And sometimes I'll do some of those new ketone esters, and sometimes I'll do some amino acids or a cup of bone broth.
That doesn't count as breaking your fast?
It's kind of sort of cheating, but it's like it's a speed bump for a skinny, high metabolism guy like me to have like a cup of 40-calorie bone broth in the middle of the day.
The bone broth would be
24-hour fast.
Would the ketone esters also break your fast?
They're acaloric.
Yeah.
Technically, from just a pure, very simple physiology standpoint, your body would need to utilize those ketones for energy before it would, turn some of your own acetyl-CoA derived from your fat into extra ketones. But I just like the way I feel while I'm fasting using these, especially like the newer ketone esters.
And the ketone esters, aren't you supposed to take them with glucose?
No.
No.
You are going to get a huge performance advantage by taking them with glucose, but that's also it's an ancestrally inappropriate state for the human body to have simultaneously elevated levels of blood glucose and elevated levels of blood ketones, because traditionally we'd have elevated our blood ketones through fasting. And while I'm okay with elevating blood ketones via a non-ancestral route, such as the consumption of these ketone esters designed, by the U.S. Department of Defense for soldiers in battle who have to go 2 or 3 days without eating, or for Tour de France riders have been using them for a while. The idea of consuming glucose along with those ketones and spiking blood glucose, which can have a little bit of an inflammatory oxidative effect, is not something I would do unless I were in a race or in a really hard, demanding workout. That's where something like that you can use like rocket fuel, and that's actually a very good mix. Some kind of like a fructose maltodextrin blend, which the Gatorade Sports Science Institute has shown allows you to get a really high absorption of carbohydrates rather than just maltodextrin or just glucose or just fructose. Then you add in ketone esters on top of that, and then to stave off what's called central nervous system fatigue, the crossing of tryptophan into the brain, which kind of makes you feel, turkey dinner sleepy effect during exercise. You throw essential amino acids into that. So you've got amino acids, ketones, and glucose, and that mix is just pure rocket fuel.
Yeah, you talked about that last time. You said it was like being on steroids, that having glucose in your system with ketones is just fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Now, when you go on these fasts, if you drink coffee, does coffee break your fast?
Coffee or the consumption of anything from a circadian biology, right? 24-hour circadian rhythm. You've got multiple circadian rhythm cues. One is movement. So when you travel and you're jet-lagged, movement helps you normalize your biological clock. Another is light, right? So exposure to high amounts of morning sunlight, or using one of these newfangled hacking devices like the eye light or the in-ear light. That's another circadian cue. Eating, or really the consumption of anything, supplements, coffee, tea, etc., that's also a circadian cue. There's a researcher, Dr. Sachin Panda, who's got some really good research on circadian rhythmicity. And what he says is that the consumption of anything can disrupt circadian biology if you're fasting for the purposes of regulating your circadian rhythms. Maybe you've got insomnia, poor sleep patterns, inflammation due to lack of sleep, or lack of, the lymphatic drainage and consolidation of memory and everything that occurs during deep sleep. Your sleep is more or less fucked up, right? Like that would be a situation in which you just wouldn't want to eat anything during a fast. But if your fast is for the purposes of, let's say, like fat loss, or even some of, like the endogenous stem cell production benefits of fasting, an acaloric cup of coffee is not going to cause any issues. And furthermore, if you're concerned about like the cholesterols in the coffee, use a paper filter, because you're going to filter out most of the cholesterols as well, versus like a French press or or a steel filter. Yeah.
What about water?
Water, I think, is completely allowed. Now, there are some people who do dry fasting. That would be popular for people who have like candida or yeast or fungi. They would claim that a moist environment would allow the bacteria to flourish. And so some of those people will do dry fasting. I know a guy who does dry fasting with autologous urine therapy, where he does a dry fast in the morning, he drinks his urine. And that's some old Ayurvedic cleansing technique that I don't personally do.
You ever try it?
I did try it, yes. Of course I tried it, dude. Yeah, it doesn't, it's not for
the
me.
Best.
Yeah. Actually, the temperature got to me more than the taste. Just like the warm hotness, like it just, it felt,
from the tap.
It felt too alive. Yeah, it was just, it was not good.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the coffee is not an issue unless you're putting a bunch of stuff in it. Right. And then even though it is admittedly non-insulinogenic, and it's actually quite a kick in the pants, as you know, when you blend fats with coffee, you get the kafestol and the kaweol, they cross the blood-brain barrier, they amp you up psychologically. You're also getting, your body has to burn those calories before it burns a lot of its own calories. Right. So that's not something you would do well in a fasted state.
Ben, I got to wrap this up. You're always a mind fuck, dude. Every time you come in here, I have to pause after the podcast and try to like capture little bits of information.
I want steak now. That's pretty much my main takeaway from the past couple hours. Is I want a freaking steak.
Tell people how they can get to your website. Tell people how they can watch your videos.
Go read that sleep article I just wrote. It's good. BenGreenfieldFitness.com, or just Google Ben Greenfield. You'll find it. Social media is Ben Greenfield. Yeah, just look. There's not a lot of us Benjamin Greenfield's out there. You'll find it.
Benjamin Greenfield, you're a bad motherfucker. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thanks
for coming in.
All right,
it was awesome.
Later.
Bye, everybody. Boy.